Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 365. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, in this case, Uncle Jim, the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin. Because Jim, we're joined on this episode by your niece Cassie as we talk about two of the books from Villains Month.
How's it going, eh?
This was an exciting episode, and I want to thank Cassie for joining us. And we talked about on this episode Detective Comics 23.2 and Batman 23.2. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're doing this really cool 50% off deal of the week sale, and you should be checking these out. They have, from the DC end, they have Justice League Volume 3, the hardcover. It's 50% off, only $12.49. They have the Shazam hardcover, which collects the Shazam story from the Justice League from the New 52, Volume 1, 50% off, also only $12.49. I'm a big fan of Jim Aparo, and apologies for the name butchery. It's one of those names that I've grown up with. They have this really cool Legends of the Dark Knight, Jim Aparo hardcover. And I know I butcher his name probably every time I do it. I grew up, he was my Batman artist. And as a kid, you get stuck in your head how to pronounce somebody's name because you never hear them anywhere. This is classic Batman stories. On the cover of the hardcover, they have Batman and Deadman, and it's a 50% off book, only $24.99. InStockTrades.com is your source if you are looking for hardcovers, trades. Those are great hardcover volumes. For $50, you can basically get 3 amazing DC hardcover volumes because of that discount. Over at DCBService.com, I love Planetary. This is a series I jumped on late. It was actually the Absolute volumes that got me into the whole thing. I just heard great things, and I figured I would just jump on board that way. There's another opportunity to read all of this. There's 2 volumes coming out, and they're solicited right now. It's the Planetary Omnibus hardcover, which is $75 regularly, 50% off, only $37.50. They also have the Planetary Batman Deluxe hardcover, which is $22.99, 40% off, only $13.79. This is the work of Warren Ellis and John Cassaday and various artists, various colors. I know a friend of the show, David Barron, did work on this as well. This is just amazing material. I jumped on it late. It was mind-blowingly cool. I want to give it the highest possible recommendation as something you're going to want to consider reading if you never have. And this is a cool way to get all of it in a handy package of great hardcovers. So that's DCBService.com. Remember, they're a digital partner. Every one of your purchases earns 5% towards your DCB service order if you go in and link those accounts. So if you're already doing digital purchasing, why would you not link those accounts and get a deal for yourself? I think it's just really, really cool that DCB Service does that. Go over to RagingBullets.com, click on those links, and head over to those websites. They are amazing supporters of our podcast and a bunch of other really cool podcasts out there. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's join Cassie as we discuss Harlequin and the Riddler.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Joining us once again is Jim's niece, Cassie Segulin. Cassie, welcome back to Raging Bullets.
Thank you so much, guys. I missed you.
We started having a discussion before we recorded this. And I'm like, wait, we should be recording this. You guys did an interesting thing. You guys, the books that you read this week, we're doing the Riddler and the Harlequin issues of the Villains Month. Jim shared his from his app to Cassie. So I was asking you guys, because I haven't done that yet, what that looks like. So what does it look like? How does that all work?
Okay, we got two different things going on. There's the share and then the gift. There are 2 different functionalities. The share is more of kind of like a shout out, where you can throw it out there and share with people your opinions, comments, and whatnot on the book.
Well, I've done that. That's the tweeting. So I guess you're right. So the gifting is the thing I'm more curious about.
Well, the gifting is there's a little icon that's a package. It looks just like a package. You click on it, and instead of doing and ordering it to going into your comics, what it happens next is they give you another box pops up where you have to enter an email address. And you enter all that. You process it through like you normally would, and then the recipient gets the email, and that's where, Cassie, you can take over what that looks like.
Yeah, so I got the email, and it said something along the lines of, you've just received a gift from, and then it'll say whoever the gift is. And, it'll be through the comics, and then you open it up, and it says, you've received a gift. Hello, Cassie. And then you scroll down to the email, and it says, redeem now. So I have an account with the DC Comics Comixology, which powers all of this DC stuff, and then you just redeem your comics, and then you can read them online right through that link.
I haven't done the gifting thing yet. That's kind of cool that there's that option out there to send it to somebody else's account.
Yeah.
Well, the first issue we're going to talk about is the Batman, 23.2? And this was written by, the story's by Scott Snyder and Ray Fawkes, written by Ray Fawkes. The artist is Jeremy Hahn. Colorist is John Rausch. The letterer is Taylor Esposito. Cover by Gilliam March. Associate editor is Katie Kubert. Group editor is Mike Martz. And Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane. Apologies for any name butchery. This is actually, in its own way, a side story tie-in to the Batman Year One, or 0 year, I should say, that's going on right now in the Batman books. Cassie, I guess going to you, because you're reading this, are you reading that Batman 0 year story?
I am not. The last comics that I read, that was part of a continuous story was Batgirl, which was this several months ago. Last time I was on the show was the last time I read, a long story. But
so then my question is, and this is actually, I was assuming that was the case, so there's a reason for the question.
Yeah.
Not reading any of the other material right now and reading this Riddler story as a self-contained story, did you feel like you were missing anything, or how did this issue read for you as a reader not having any of that? Because I can't speak to that.
I think the interesting thing about this issue and also the Harley issue, and I'm assuming the other ones are written a similar way, is it's sort of, the Saturday morning comics, the Saturday morning cartoons, where you'd have the one-off thing where you could just come in, watch it, have a good time, and then the episode was done, and you didn't have to watch the next episode. Like a Tom and Jerry type thing, or, that kind of Pinky in the Brain, where you could just come in and watch it. I felt like this comic was was similar, that it was a perspective from Riddler that you didn't normally get, and it was sort of his, with the regular titles, they'd been doing a Year Zero or a origin story, kind of, and I felt like this was a similar idea, that yes, you had a background story, but I didn't need to know any of that background story. As soon as I got the supers aren't around anymore, I was like, okay, I'm not going to see Batman in, kicking Riddler's butt. I'm not going to see any of that. This is going to be strictly about the Riddler and how he thinks and what he's all about.
What did you think about the issue as a whole?
The issue as a whole, I liked that it was a one-off thing, and Riddler's always been, Jim and I chose Riddler and Harley Quinn because Harley I'm a big fan of, Riddler I'm a big fan of, and I thought this comic really did do him justice. I don't read a lot of Riddler. He's sort of like a secondary villain for me, but I think the comic definitely did him justice and gave him credit for his thinking and for his execution. There's no debate that, at the end of the issue, Riddler won, which doesn't normally happen.
Jim, what was your take on the issue?
Well, actually, very similar. I liked, this is a solid Riddler story, but it showcased how intelligent he is with just the strategery and the layout and the planning, and of course even the riddles, which
I loved that.
beautifully placed and just told how it was, and I loved how he had the riddles ahead of time. He knew exactly what was going to happen, all the planning going through. But you get a couple cool moments where you get to see him physically, just be very nasty and intimidating and dangerous. And that's a side of Riddler you don't always get to see. You always see the intelligence. You always see the fact that he matches wits with the Bat, but you don't get to see why he's so dangerous physically as well. And I liked seeing him throw down, him hurt and or kill people physically, not with some traps, and just see the nasty side of him.
I loved that. Oh yeah, but that he's got a nasty, nasty side. And especially that he's not only clever, but he had at the very, he's got page 1. Actually, no, I lied. Page 2, he starts introducing these riddles. And I'm one of those people that, just wants to solve it right away. And so as I'm reading the issue, I'm like, okay, what's the answer? What's the answer? And it's not till the very end that he says, okay, these are the answers to the riddles. And it's like, oh, okay, well, he is clever.
I loved that the opening setup of the story, there was that solitaire game. And that was very isolated for us as the reader. We didn't know what that was all about, other than the fact that we knew that he was in prison at that time in Arkham Asylum. So we didn't know where the connection was, where it was going. I love that played in much later on with the Guard. But the riddles, the introduction to those, what I loved about that was also there was a layer to that the riddles in his mind are something that he plans out beforehand. There's in his mind a sequence to the delivery of how and it bothers him when that sequence is broken up. Like here, there was an anger that plan that he put into place did not play out the way that he intended. It's a puzzle, and he had an order to putting together his puzzle and revealing it to the public, and very much that performance piece when it did not play out the way he intended was irritating. It was great because it's something that I haven't seen with the Riddler before. If I have, it's been so long since I don't remember that as being a part of how he's defined, but it so makes sense to the nature of the character.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And with you talking about the sequence of the riddles and, that each was, a careful, he's got 4 riddles through the whole thing. And, there's a couple pages and then a riddle and then a couple pages and then, but he lays it out all ahead of time. And I think you can draw a little bit of a parallel between the Riddler and the Joker. Bear with me on this one, but the Riddler, is sitting at Arkham. We get page 1, and he's sitting and he says, these are going to be the riddles I'm going to use, and this is going to be the approach that I'm going to go with. And if people don't laugh, whatever, I'm more clever than they are, But the Joker, on the other hand, is also about that performance and is also about making himself laugh, but he's more spontaneous. He'll have certain jokes that he wants to do. We saw in, I don't know if you guys remember, Death of the Family with the Batgirl and the crossovers, but he had very clear jokes that he wanted. He wanted, to do the thing with the face, and he wanted to do the thing with Barbara, and he wanted to do the thing with, the mom and stuff, and he had clear points. But from there, he just sort of improvised it, and he sort of just did spin-offs of, here's a funny thing that I can say. And if people don't think his jokes are funny or don't appreciate his performance, he lashes out, but in a more spontaneous, chaotic way, whereas the Riddler is very offended and very, he takes it very personally as if that's something wrong, with it's more polarizing, and he takes personal offense to the fact that people don't get his riddles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, it's the difference of chaos crazy versus order crazy.
Yeah,
because they both are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though both of them have this intelligence, because you have to give Joker credit for intelligence for some of the crazy stuff he's able to whip up, just the chemicals, his own even strategies and traps and whatnot that he lays down. But then you have the Riddler, where it's the very organized. He's the ultimate OCC kind of type of personality where he's got exactly how it's got to play out. This is it, because he is so much smarter than everyone else. He knows exactly how to lay this down, and it's neat because he's attacking Wayne Towers. One, just because it is challenging. Two, we find out later it's for a little bit of revenge. And three, it's more of okay, let's wait for the bat. Let's wait to see what happens next. This is just how he's got to play this out. He's got to prove he can do it. And then also, while he's proving he can do it, he's going to take care of some unfinished business. And I love just seeing that play out. And because at first you're like, okay, why is he going there? Is it just a challenge? Is he going to steal something? Is he going after, secrets of Batman? And all these different things were running through my head as to why he was breaking into Wayne Enterprises. And we learn later, no, he's just killing time.
Yep.
Cassie made an excellent point about, how you can draw some parallels to the Joker. I think the differentiation between the two is obviously probably the more orderly nature of the Riddler, where Joker's total chaos, the Riddler is like insane about order and a certain order of doing things, a certain way of putting, the puzzling things out and things like that. But one of the things that was touched on earlier that I thought was really great was how irritated he gets when people don't get his riddles. Because he's searching for that adversary, and he talks about this at the end. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I really like about his relationship with Batman. It's that adversary that's worthy of testing him. That battle to... And I honestly feel that if the Riddler beat Batman, he would go on then and search for he wouldn't consider that to be the end of his quest. He would continue searching for that next person to push him to the next level. It's, now that I've put together a 500-piece puzzle, I want to do a 1,000-piece. Now that I've done a 1,000-piece, I want to jump to 2,000. He would keep, and I want the pieces tinier and tinier with a picture that's more and more complex and complicated so that I can show that I can defeat that. And then I would go on to the next challenge. And it's one of those things that I link him very much to... your magicians or your people that you see like on television that do like tightrope walks across like the Grand Canyon or things like that, where it's you conquer one task that seems insurmountable, and what do I do next to top that? Because if I don't continue topping that, I dwindle away into obscurity, and he cannot handle dwindling into obscurity. And I don't think it's so much being noticed by others. It's a self-driven thing. For him, I don't think the public viewpoint of him is as important as his own self-driven viewpoint, which is where I think the Joker is far more interested in the public spectacle side of things than the Riddler is, even though I agree that he's a showman. I think for the Riddler, it really is an internal, because he seems really to get annoyed with the public very, very fast in the way that the Joker is constantly entertained by them, which is something that I found there was a distinct difference between the two when you start to make parallels between them. And that's important as well, because he is not Joker light. He has a lot of the things you can make parallels on, but then there's serious areas where they start to divert, which is what makes them both unique and interesting characters. Yeah,
I definitely agree. And I don't know about this storyline, but in other storylines, the Riddler is a doctor, is sort of a psychiatrist, but like an intellectual. And I think that sort of plays, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim and Sean, but I think that plays into his order, and the way that he plans things is very clinical and, academic, where, and he has that background, and it's sort of like a Harley Quinn, where she was originally Harleen Quinzel, who had a mission and who had a purpose, and who had her work and stuff. And I feel like it's similar with when the Riddler was Edward Nygma, that, even though he's still crazy, he's pulling this stuff over from his past life, where he's still he's still got that doctor, that clinical kind of, the order, and that everything's got rules and regulations, and there's boxes and, and things that you have to do in a certain order.
I think the difference now, I don't think anything that would have complicated his past is still present. I think what they did now is they looked at what diminished the Riddler in the past, because I do think he was one of Batman's villains that was gradually diminished. Because you guys mentioned earlier the physicality of the Riddler in this, and the fact that we saw him with in his own kind of gadgets that played into his attack plan. Because, again, we go into this whole idea that he's more of a puzzle expert. And his riddles are all about a puzzle, putting a puzzle before people that they can't solve, being endlessly impressed by the people that do. But the thing that I really loved about this was that we saw that branch out from his riddles into his attack plan on Wayne Towers, his gadgets that he brought with him. Everything had a purpose. Everything had a plan. Even his physicality was something he knew what he was going to be dealing with. So he brought things to assist his own physical weaknesses, so to speak, so that he would have an edge. You know, when he pulls out that question mark cane, you know, that was something that was brought for the purpose of being an aid to help him continue the plan. You know, even to that cupcake-looking thing.
That was beautiful. That
yogurt.
I love when he's just like, yeah, allow me to just pull this yogurt out and whip it up with my cane. I just loved it. That's one of my favorite parts of the Riddler is the cane. I know it's kind of nitpicky, but I've just always been a huge fan of the cane.
Well, I love that it wasn't just a visual prop that like you would swing and hit people with. There was actual electronic. You know, I love that it like popped out and it was this small thing that grew gradually larger because he needed to sneak it in. But then that all turned into, you know, from this unassuming way that he walked into the place to gradually turning into the Riddler. The Riddler. I'm inventing all kinds of new villains. Yeah. It was that aspect of it I thought that was really great, that there was something more to it, and it was a part of the puzzling process. It wasn't a visual prop. It actually was a part of continuing to puzzle his way through the place because he had an attack plan. I thought that part was really key to defining who the character is psychologically, which kind of goes back to where you're thinking clinically about him. But I don't think that's a part of this Riddler's origin as much as there's a psychology to the way he does things that I think is incredibly apparent here, where I see where your connection's coming from.
Yeah.
And it's funny that whole yogurt scene, you know, one of the things that I liked about it was he just fries the one guy with the electricity, you know, and as he's just calmly walking along, he sees, and he didn't bring, that yogurt was sitting there on the desk. I took it as, and he sees that. He goes, oh, okay, let me have a little bit of yogurt. And he's just very calm as he's watching his little chaos go on outside, distracting everybody. And he's just, I can almost kind of hear him go, do, 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 just as he's casually just strolling. Okay, time to put this in here, knock it and blow out the wall. I love just that casual calmness of him. And then you have the security guard who's running up, it's the Riddler, go, go, go. And he knows exactly where he's going. He's sprinting up the stairs, and he's a man with a mission. And as I'm just reading this going, oh God, this dude is so dead.
Yeah. Well, and when
But Jim, hold on. There's one thing I want to correct on that. Jim, if you take a look at his hand, he put something in the yogurt. That was the part of the plan. I'm not saying the yogurt was something that he brought with him. I love that he just ended up using that as the storage unit for his bomb. I thought that was really fantastic.
Yeah, I thought that was beautiful. Well, and when he picks up the yogurt after he electrocutes the guy, and then he picks up the yogurt, I actually thought, before I had turned the page, I thought he was, going to eat the yogurt and he was going to have a jolly old time, because he comes into this office, and it's the type of thing where, you'll play with their pens, or you'll tip over their, roll the chair around type of thing, just sort of waiting for the next part to happen. And especially, when he holds the spoon against the glass of Wayne Tower, that it's his patient waiting, and, maybe he'll have a yogurt, maybe he'll sit in somebody's chair. But then I love when he sticks it in and uses it as the device for his explosive. But I think that just shows, like, as you were saying before, John, Jim and Sean, the casualness of the Riddler.
I think his casualness comes from the plan that he had in place, though. Everything was step by step to a plan, the way his riddles are. He has a step-by-step plan for unleashing his riddles that go along with the plan that's in place. Like when he's sitting down and he's got all those, what do you call them, I guess wires around him that are part of like his whole, again, part of his whole like puzzle thinking process. I loved the way that played out with waiting for the guard, because that was totally what he was doing there. He's waiting for the guard to come in that he could finally get that revenge that he was thinking about, that was part of the process, which I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah. And it was funny with the riddles. I didn't get them all. I did guess the hand one, but the others, and that was the thing that I was sitting there and I loved how they finally played out, and you finally figure out by him telling us them. But that the second to last one with that was about the guard. I had never even remotely thought that was going to be the possibility. Even when he starts identifying, oh, hey, you're the guard. Yeah, I remember, when he calls him by name and he knows exactly who the guy is. I love just, again, you see it coming, but it's not, it's still the swerve. It's still the mystery.
Oh, totally agree. And that's one of the key parts. There's a mystery to this whole thing. And I like your commentary on the swerve, because the Riddler should always be about, for the reader, the swerve. You may be able to get some of his riddles, but I think the tough part for writers, and I think it's the challenging part, is to try and deliver riddles that are all a challenge to figure out. Like, you might be able to figure out one, maybe two, but some of them should really stump you, because you want to feel like, and when you hit your head with your hand, and you go, I should have caught that one. That, to me, is a successful writer that was able to... I would not want to tackle creating riddles to try and challenge the reader, because that's one of the keys. You've got to make the Riddler a believable character, that he really could stump the Batman. And if you've got nothing but lame riddles, you lose that believability to the character. And I thought they did a fantastic job here of delivering riddles that made me go, okay, I can get that one. I can get that one. I have absolutely no clue what on earth they're talking about with that one. And I thought that was great.
Well, I think the fact that you can't get all of his riddles sort of puts you in the shoes of, the everyday the muggles. It's the Gotham muggles. It puts you in their shoes, and it just makes it that much more magical to watch the Riddler do his work, because, and you're seeing it creates a relationship between the reader and the Riddler, because even though, he's not breaking the fourth wall and he's not doing all of this, stuff, he knows as a character that the reader and that Batman and that the everyday people aren't going to get his riddles. And and you as the reader know, that Batman and the everyday people aren't going to get all of his riddles. And that's what, so you can identify with, you can put yourself into Gotham or into whatever city that he's going in. And I think also for that reason that Riddler to write successfully is a very hard character to write. Because you were talking about, if you just come up with a bunch of lame riddles, knock jokes and that kind of things, if you just make him a lame character, nobody's going to read him, because you'll get all of his riddles and he'll be predictable, and you don't have that sort of greater than thou really, really clever character. You've just got somebody he says crazy riddles.
You don't want the guy. You don't want him to become the character that, because of the riddles, is how Batman's able to stop him. Where he's going to give away exactly where he's going to be, when he's going to be, but he has to because of the riddles, and that's how he was written in the past. And and even like on the Super Camp TV series, he was written that way. And I always when I see this type of Riddler, where I see a more nasty guy, a more, he has the riddles, but it's more of just the mental challenge for himself and just kind of the seeing what he's up against. It's not going to get him caught. It's not going to reveal, what his end game is going to actually be. It's more of the challenge, for himself, the challenge for his adversary to see if they are worthy of facing him. And I like that darker side of him.
I don't mind, too, if it leads to him... I guess if the challenge leads to him getting caught, I don't have an issue with that so long as it's a suitable challenge. Like, a lot of times when the Riddler's written, and I guess that's why I used the word diminished before, it does come off as kind of cheesy, and you have trouble thinking of him psychologically as this, like, truly great adversary of Batman's. Whereas in this story, oh my gosh, I could so totally see this guy being impossibly difficult because it wasn't just the riddles, it was every bit of his actions. I could see this guy's plan coming to light if it's a much more complicated plan, where Batman could along the way start to figure out what he's doing by the riddles, because in some ways the riddles do lead to this is what he's going to do here. The thing with the hand, where he took the hand and used it to open. If you're following a certain path with him, you can start to figure out what he potentially might do if you are the world's greatest detective. As the reader, I should feel in awe of Batman figuring this out from the chain that's going on there. It shouldn't be phoned into me. This wasn't phoned in. Like, partway through, you could see, like, as it was going on, oh, that's what that riddle's for, and that's what that riddle's for. And you could see how the changing of an order of a riddle would throw off the pacing of his plan, because they're pretty critically aligned to his step-by-step process of infiltrating this place. So I get it. I mean, and that was cool. And I could see Batman somehow figuring that out in a way that we, the reader, would not. And that's the part that, to me, is the key. I need to believe that Batman knows more than I do. And the only way that's going to happen if his adversary makes you believe they know more than you do. And the Riddler did that in this. He really felt like, to me, like, wow, yeah, I can kind of, I'm with you. One of them, I kind of figured out myself. The rest of them, I started to maybe head down a path where I figured out. But how I would connect any of this together in any way, shape, or form, I have absolutely zero idea. I loved that about this, that it did make sense, but there's no way I would have connected any of those dots. That's cool.
Yeah. And I also love the part of when he does the hand with, when we were talking about how he's just a nasty guy. When he blows the place open and he uses her hand to open up the door, he uses the one woman's hand to open the door, and then this other lady just punches him in the face. But it's a reasonable action for somebody else to have. Obviously she's got some guts, and she says, this isn't, she says, I didn't take 17 years of self-defense classes for nothing, which is, comical. And she just sort of, she's mocking the Riddler there. She's saying, well, I can punch you because you're not that big. But then what he does next is he says, you do not touch me. And he whacks her in the face with the cane. And then I think he electrocutes her after that. Yeah, he whacks her. That's a good, solid, swinging whack in the face with the cane. And I just thought that was, I thought that was wonderful that, he didn't, you see in a lot of movies where they'll hold their wrists and they'll give them the death stare, they'll give them the Clint Eastwood stare and, don't touch me type of thing, and then they'll move on. But he took it to the next step. She punched him in the face and he whacked her with his cane, and then he moved on. He didn't draw it out, and then he just kept going on his way.
Now, did you guys take it that she's dead?
No, I don't. She's not dead. I don't think that's... I never pictured him as that being his style. He's not in it for the killing. He's in it for the challenge, and, that her dying isn't part of his plan, so he's not going to go out of his way to kill her. He's so calculated that if he wanted to kill her, he could, but killing her is unnecessary. he's in there with a distinct with a purpose, and he's not going to step away from that plan just because a girl punched him in the face.
I don't see him, though, feeling like if she got in the way, he would not hesitate. Her death wouldn't be an issue. I agree with you that that's not, he's not looking for the kill. That's not necessarily part of his issue. I do think when it came to the guard, he either wanted him dead or to live life incredibly uncomfortably, in one of those two situations, because of the fact that this guy disrupted his puzzle, his chance to complete this puzzle, and that's really important to him. Do not get in the way of my problem solving, my planning things out, and I do think he'd kill for that. The girl with the punch was crossing a line, and I think if it had impeded his plan any further, she so totally would have been, in his mind, cannon fodder. But I don't know. I don't know that...
Definitely.
She's groaning afterwards, so I kind of take that to mean that she's still alive, probably at some hospital, because she's certainly severely hurt. But I didn't take it that she was dead. But I don't think that he would... I don't think that, he's against killing. I don't think he's for preserving life. But like you said, there's no drive... like that has to be a part of it. He was more concerned with getting back to his puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the first guard that he electrocutes with the first riddle of electricity, that guy to me looks dead. He looks deader than a doornail, because just the blank look on the face as he's just walking away, and the fact that his body is like steaming, so it's smoldering a little bit. I took it that he was completely dead. That's why I was just wondering with her if he would kill her, because you see the kind of sound, but that could be a death rattle. That could be her last sound on this planet.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Sean.
The guy's eyes, if you look at him too, are rolled back into his head, and it was also a different method, though. That was that wasn't the same way that he attacked the girl. So I loved seeing that there was like wires that he actually had to leave behind. It was a very different process. So I think the difference was, I wonder if that guard wasn't intentional and the girl was an accident who got in the way, because she threw off his plan. So I think the guard's death, I think kind of goes back to what I was saying. I don't think he has any issue with killing. I think the guard was planned to die there. He brought that electricity because that was part of his thing. Killing the guard just happens to work for his plan. Went through and did that. The girl was a shock. That threw off his plan a little bit, and he dealt with it appropriately, but then got right back to his plan. So I think there's a distinction between the guard and the girl, at least in my mind, because the guard was planned to be there. The first guard I'm talking about. Right,
yeah, the first guard. And and also you see it with that first guard, he doesn't even try to answer the riddle. He's like, well, you can't win if you don't play. Where kind of angered and annoyed Riddler that he wouldn't even try to answer the riddle. So there was a little bit more added incentive to kill that guy.
Well, and go you, Sean, for making an electricity pun. So you get points in my book. I definitely think that he died because he was part of the plan, and he fit into the puzzle, and the girl was just sort of you sort of brush her aside a little bit. She's a speed bump in this whole thing. And when we were talking about the guy at the end, George, who loses his arm, I agree with you, Sean, that either he's dead or he's living very uncomfortably. But his death has a purpose to the Riddler and also to Edward Nygma, who was in Arkham. But his losing his arm solves the riddle, but also his death, if he died from, blood loss or whatever, would be solving the riddle and also sort of continuing the riddle past the actual answer to it.
Yeah, this it's funny because you start thinking beyond the page, and the guy's obviously going into shock, And I love the fact that they're kind of even making reference to that because he's talking about him mumbling about his fate. So when you just start, and you kind of see the look on his face, on George's face there, and he's kind of has but he's going into shock. And that would happen if your arm suddenly is blown off and you're dealing with massive blood loss. And so, George isn't long for this world because I don't see him, keeping it together and being able to put a tourniquet on it, or even like any of the executives finding and getting to him in time. He's, George is a goner. Yeah.
And I love the little half smile. The next panel over, when he starts, that's the arm you pushed me with and you took the small comfort, he's got a little half smile.
Yeah.
And I love that touch, that he's got the profile and he's looking directly into his eyes. And he's got that little half smile of, well, look at me, I've blown your arm off. And now I'm going to go stand on a rooftop and marvel in my own greatness for being really clever. But I just thought that was a beautiful touch. And also having the panel, when he gets his arm blown off, his arm is smoking. Like when he did the electricity and all the other stuff, his arm is definitely smoking there.
There's something twisted about Batman's villains. And it's one of the things that I like about his rogues gallery. They've each got their own unique thing. And I get your part where you were in the beginning of the discussion, Cassie, when you were talking about how you can connect the Riddler with the Joker. I suspect that you could play the Kevin Bacon game with all of Batman's rogues gallery into a certain way. But then what's interesting about them is not only how they connect, but the distinctive ways they disconnect. And the Riddler has distinct disconnections from the Joker that makes him a unique and interesting character. But I think Batman's rogues are very much driven by their personality disorders. Each one of them has unique personality disorders, which could be argued to even go as far as like Catwoman and things like that. They all have their own little issues. Bruce does as well, which is their connection with him. Which is, in many ways, maybe Kevin Bacon should play Batman. But
we'll take Ben Affleck and replace him with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Just because
Ben Affleck can be Robin. Because Matt Damon already said he wasn't going to do it.
You guys want to talk that Harley issue, or do you guys have anything else you want to say about the Riddler issue that we missed? Because I think we got pretty much everything.
Well, I like, if we're talking about art and such, I like the simplicity of the art. As I'm flipping through, I've got the issue right in front of me, and I love the simplicity of not only the color scheme, how it's green and it's purple, it's got a little bit of blue, but for the most part it's green and purple, in the backgrounds and in the light and such, and it's very simple and very calculated, very much like the Riddler. It doesn't have a lot of details, doesn't have a lot of huge explosion-y kind of, that might be the style of that particular artist, but I love how the aesthetics play into this particular issue and the personality of the Riddler.
That's been a strength in the New 52 in general. I'm not going to say it was every single book's been that way, but at least it's clear that there's an intention to match art teams, or at least to push our teams to adopt a style that matches the theme, the tone, and the direction of the book. In this case, they clearly put on an art team that understood the story that was being told and how to visually present that in a way that matches that story. And it's funny that you mentioned how this art looks, because we've got a very different art style when we do start talking about the Harley Quinn issue that I think totally matches the themes and the tone of that book. But everything you said about this art style is not what you would say about the art style in the Harley Quinn book. And I think that's fantastic. I love that there's that distinction between the choice of the artistic talent that was put on this book, that they recognized the story that needed to be told here visually, that needed to match, obviously, the dialogue that was presented with it, because it really is. It's a good-looking issue that really, at no point in time did the art take me out of the story. It just totally blends right into what this story should be.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, and I love that in the beginning, it's pages 4 and 5. I don't know if you guys have the issue right in front of you, but it's pages 4 and 5 when he starts pulling out his costume from, when he tosses the cane up and catches it and pulls his mask out of his hat and pops his hat up with the headphones and, does this whole thing that it's important art-wise, but also how they're putting together, how the writers and how the artist is putting together the costume, that it's a transformation of the Riddler, that he becomes, this guy in a green suit to this nasty, nasty villain. And it's just simple changes. It's the cane, the mask, the hat. And he's able to make that complete transformation.
Well, he makes this transformation from somebody who blends to somebody who's very dynamic and stands out. Because he really does blend very early on. When you can see why people wouldn't really notice him much as he was coming in. But then a couple quick changes, and now this guy sticks out like a sore thumb. And I love that was what, for him, was needed at that point in time. The show has begun. There was a movie with Pierce Brosnan, and I'm so totally forgetting the name of it right now, where he played a thief. He did stuff like this. Rene Russo was in it as well. And I wish I wasn't drawing the blank with it at the moment. But
the Thomas Crown Affair,
exactly.
1999.
Yeah, bingo. Very good. Because the whole bank scene, the whole scene where he was stealing the art, and you saw the sleight of hand, he was here one minute and then here the next minute, and somebody else looked like him, and people had on similar outfits. Everything that was done and all that, I connected this issue very much with the Thomas Crown Affair, because I was like, wow, this reminds me of that scene, how he just kind of sneaks in this unassuming manner, but then everyone knows, you start to see gradually that people are figuring out that something is going on. And it's blatantly in your face that something is going on. But this plan was so well put together, there was no way to stop it. Even the punch, which disrupted the plan, wasn't enough to take the plan out of play, because it was so well put together that no variable could ruin it. It was just I thought it was really, really cool. And that's one of the things I loved about that movie. And it really comes into play right here.
Yeah. Well, and also, just with the New 52, when the New 52 first came out, I remember, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of controversy surrounding the costume changes. And the Riddler now isn't in, his green suit with a bunch of question marks everywhere, and it's kind of crazy, and he's in a simple green suit, purple tie, and he's got he's very simple and classy, but it's a completely different it's a different costume than what I was used to growing up as a kid. And also when we discussed the Harley issue, the Harley costume's completely different. But I think when they did this revamp, that they did a great job as far as coloring and costume and making it more believable. Obviously before New 52, he didn't have the underwear on the outside and the bat nipples and all of that stuff. They didn't have to worry about all that stuff. But they still did a great job as far as costuming and mood and stuff for the New 52 for the Riddler.
I think what they did is they further simplified or further made more conservative the look that they adopted with him when he was a private detective. And Jim, you can tell me whether or not you agree with that. Because they took that style, because that's what he looked like when he was had a public eye. But when he did that as a private detective, he didn't have to hide he was a Riddler. In this case, this little twist, where the hat pops up, then we got the question mark, and we got all that. It was really cool because it played into the fact that this guy could get away with sneaking in if he handles himself just right. And there's something interesting about that because Batman's got so many flamboyant characters that there's something about the way he carries himself with a little bit more of a calm confidence that seems like it's more fitting of the Riddler. Because I love the Frank Gorshin version from the 60s series. I think that's great. I really enjoy the thinking of that character. But, that was very animated in its presentation. And it worked for that series. It doesn't work here. And that's okay, because he's a character that has evolved into a more of a thinking mentality, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture of Frank Gorshin as the Riddler right now, and he's got the green suit, and he's got question marks everywhere, and it's very, it's that more flamboyant character that you were talking about earlier. He's very, not bright and colorful, because he's sticking to the green and the purple, but he's a lot more big of a deal. And, he's lost the purple mask, that he's doing the green Robin style with the diamond shape mask, and and the question marks all over the coat, but he's still got the tie and the question mark on the hat and stuff. And there's little touches of older Riddlers in this newer one.
Oh yeah, it's a nice hybrid that he still feels like the same guy. See, that's one of the keys. If you're going to revamp a costume of somebody as iconic as the Riddler, you don't want to make him completely unidentifiable, because he's been around way too long for that. But you can also switch it up in a way where he makes sense to today's mentality, where you could see this working on some level. And the way that it was played out in this, it would work, which is where that was really kind of interesting to me. Speaking of, we probably should start talking about the Harley issue, because we want to talk about costumes that, like, she's not remotely. Jim, do you want to do the creative team on that one?
Oh, sure. Next one is Detective Comics 23.2. The writer is Matt Kindt, with artist Neil Gouge, colorist Will Quintana, letterer Taylor Esposito, with Chris Burnham and Nathan Fairbairn on the cover. Harvey Richards is the associate editor. Will Moss, editor. Senior editor Brian Cunningham. Harley Quinn, created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. And Batman, of course, was created by Bob Kane.
Now, Neil Gouge was Welcome to Tranquility, wasn't he, Jim?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, because the artwork, I immediately...
It's the same style, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay. I know who this guy is.
Because I saw that artwork right away, and I'm like, ooh, I really like this guy. And I thought he was a very good choice for the artwork on this one, because it fit the style. And it is. He was definitely from Welcome to Tranquility. I think he was one of the, if I remember correctly, one of the co-creators with Gail Simone. I don't remember how that relationship worked. If he, had helped with the character designs, based on Gail's scripts, or how that worked. Because that was more of a creator-owned Worldstorm title, and I don't know how that relationship worked out. But I was a huge fan of Welcome to Tranquility, so that stood out for me. But that's my take. I obviously already knew him in my head. I'm interested, Cassie, in your case, because you referenced the artwork being something that you liked the way it tied into the issue with the Riddler. Did it work for you with this different art team on Harley Quinn and the presentation? Did you get that same experience? Because you don't have necessarily the relationship that I do with the creative team.
Yeah, I think now that I've read the issue and now that we're talking about it, I think the art style definitely works. And I think it's a great combination between writing and art and everything like that, because, even just like the lines, even without the color and stuff like that, it's very chaotic, very curly, very wild. Now that the Joker is no longer in the picture for Harley, it's more chaotic, and, her hair is all over the place. She doesn't have those tight pigtails that she did in earlier costumes and with with different issues. And then when you stick the color in, it's that same thing that we had with the Riddler. All the pages are red. It's red and blue, very dark and very chaotic, which I think definitely works with Harley, especially now that Joker's out of the picture and it's just a Harley issue after she's dropped Suicide Squad. That she doesn't have, she's less of a sidekick now and more of a major villain now that she's not with the Joker.
I always like with her, there's an interesting gray area where there's times where she's a blatant out-and-out villain, usually when she's with the Joker, and you just want to smack her upside the head and go, what are you doing? But it's funny when she's separated from him and you see her with Deadshot. I'm sitting here I want to see these two rally together, knowing that they're both villains, but for some reason when they're together, I can't help but want to cheer for her. which is so strange. She's one of those characters that I think flips on a coin as far as how you feel about her as a character. That's for me, at least. She's an interesting gray area where sometimes I'm cheering for her, other times I'm not, and she's always a villain. Like there's this part where I'm like going, wow, what a great hero she is. I read her solo series back in the day when she had it, and they kind of skirted this line with her where there were times where you were kind of like, well, she is doing something that's like, on the good side here, on the side of the angels here, and that type of thing. But I think she works best when she's like, Suicide Squad's a great fit for her because she's this horribly misguided person, but you can see that there is a part of her that in there is actually, because she's so scarred, and this issue I think delivers it, actually does have a heart that's in there as well. So she's a fun character to read because I don't know that you completely ever know how to feel about her. Should you cheer for her, rally against her, or just think she's completely nuts? I don't know. But what do you got? Like, what is your feeling about her as a character? Jim, go ahead.
Well, it kind of depends on who's in the driver's seat. Is it Harley or is it Harleen? Because we see both of that. We do see that Dr. Crimson still in there and still in charge sometimes, but we also see the Harley Quinn in charge. And it's a neat, kind of battle they go back and forth because they see each other as individuals and they see them both in there. It's kind of that chess match back and forth. Was she crazy or was she pretending to be crazy to get in closer? Who really was the dominant force behind Harley Quinn? And that kind of, just that logic, that kind of, the way it goes, the way who she is and why she is doing something is always kind of fascinating for me. And it's been, when they had her in the Suicide Squad, they first really started bringing that up. And then this issue gives us a great fleshing of where she came from, how she is. And it's really got me excited for her, for the ongoing series coming up.
Yeah, Harley's actually, Jim, you know this because I've told you this a million times. Harley's one of my favorite all-time characters. Batman obviously is a favorite of mine, but Harley always takes the top for me. She does exist as Harley and Harleen, and I think we definitely see this in this issue where they're both in the driver's seat.
Yes.
At the same time, it's sort of, when you see those movie sequences where one is physically driving, but the other one keeps grabbing at the steering wheel. And I feel like it's the same thing. I think Harleen is sort of a backseat driver, almost constantly grabbing at that driver, at the steering wheel. And every once in a while you see that come through, that Harley's like, okay, well, I'll let you drive for a little bit, but I'm actually the one pushing down on the gas, and I'm in the one control of the brakes and where we turn and stuff and how this goes.
I think this issue defines that it isn't two dual natures living in there, not like Two-Face. I think she's gotten to a point where her relationship is she recognizes all the bits and pieces, because she even has that one page where, and I know I'm kind of jumping to this, part of me will always be her and my mother and my brother and my father and all the other bits I've picked up over the years. I'm more like a collage now, a mosaic. And when you take a look at even the way that she's drawn and the multicolored hair and the outfit, it's almost like there is all of that wrapped up into one person in the way that she's being developed now. And in many ways, all those pieces put together are what bring out her unique brand of crazy. Mm-hmm. Because she can pull from that good side. She can pull from that abusive side. She can pull from that, funny side. She can pull from that. There's a whole bunch of different personalities wrapped up into that unique little packaging of a person who's still striving to find and define herself. And I don't even know, even in that moment, if she's fully defined herself yet. I think that's maybe the part of her that connects with the Joker. All of those personalities make her own little chaos, which is kind of fun.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was gonna just the one sequence that I really enjoyed when we see Joker throw her into the vat, and she's like, she completely, that's where she had that moment where she lost it. She flushed away the control, the goals, the regularity, the way I had my life I had. I was finally free to forget, to play for fun, to play crazy, to play dumb. And you get that, oh, Mr. J, it was just that really cool just flow through where it kind of like locked in to my head where, it's an answer, but it actually even opened up more questions as to, is she playing dumb? Is she, giving, is she this person or is she this person over here? Which is the real Harley? And it's something that I absolutely love about the character is I still have a mystery as to who she is.
Well, and she's still, I think, even by the end of the issue, she's having a hard time defining herself as an individual. Even at the end when she's, blowing stuff up and uploading. I wasn't quite sure what happened. Was she uploading a program or something like that? But the dialogue at the end says, Joker doesn't care about you, Harley. So you went to a lot of work for nothing. And she's still trying to impress the Joker, and she's still trying to find her place in the world, even though he's gone. And we see that even, I think we see that starting from that page, Jim, that you were talking about when she gets dumped into the vat, and she goes right from that switch of being Harleen to being Harley. And the first thing that she said is, oh, Mr. J, you just know how to treat a girl. She goes right into that abusive relationship. She goes, she starts as a doctor, but she's still very young. And she gets swept right into this relationship with the Joker, and his dangerous, he's very dangerous even to her. And now that she's broken away from that, she still doesn't know how to exist by herself.
I like the idea that there's this girl who's disassociated herself from feeling, who is going the opposite direction now. She's like embracing feeling. She's recognizing the dangers of that dissociation, and when I say embracing emotion, it's not that we're striving for positive emotions, we're striving for any emotion. So that thing that you mentioned that she was uploading was a virus that when they were uploaded to the game systems causes them to explode. Yeah. And she was talking about the just sheer mixture of emotion because she can recognize pain. So that was something she could connect with. And all of the different emotions that go along with that from Harleen and from herself and from her family and from all these little puzzle pieces and what that brings out on her, watching all of that happening around her, she's looking for that connection with emotion, digging for that. And I don't know that she's fully connected with it because I think when, Deadshot is coming over to tell her the things that he is, it's revealed that, he recognizes that she doesn't always get it, but she's seeing it too. And it's that kind of awakening that she's going through that makes her very interesting as a character. They've done a really good job of not losing the core qualities that make her interesting because she's not a female Joker. And if you do it that way, you're losing something huge. This is a very intelligent woman who's has a ton of issues, but there's a thought process to her that while blowing those things up and all that stuff is very Joker-ish, it's still not the same. It feels very different and very unique to her. And that's a catch all with her that you've got to get out there. You don't want her to be Miss Joker. You want her to be Harley Quinn. And this issue all the way through, I felt like there was something distinctive about her that she just happened to run with the Joker because there's a similar sort of theme, but it goes way beyond that. I think it's important, the distinction.
Yeah. Well, and she's not a female Joker, because I feel like if they wrote her as a female Joker, you might as well just read the Joker.
Bingo.
So, because the Joker's got a history, and he's strong, and you know who he is, and he's very established. And if they're just gonna photocopy the Joker, and it's like, okay, well, she's a photocopy, I might as well just read the original.
Yeah, she's got that impulse control issue, and I love just seeing that as she was building her costume. When she just starts taking piece by piece. First one were the sorority sisters walking across campus. Takes the cricket mallet from the one, bashes him and grabs. Just attacks him out of nowhere, takes one legging off of one legging off of the other. Because she didn't want the same color. She wanted one blue, one red. And then later she mugs a jogger who's just cheery, just jogging down, mugs her, takes her shorts. It just, as she's going on, she sees it, she wants it, she takes it. It's that ultimate impulse, just that non-impulse control, but it's not even, I don't even want to say that, because it's not like she can't control herself. She doesn't want to. She wants the open. She wants the freedom. She's like, bam, I'm out there. This is it. It's just a release of emotion.
And I when they first did the revamp for the costume, I had a lot of issues with the costume because it's so patchy and so ragdoll type of thing. But now that I'm actually seeing her put together the costume, I'm liking it a lot more. But originally I had issues with the corset, the striped corset, and the short shorts, and a lot of that sort of, girling her up a bit rather than the diamond suit and the classic Harley. But now she's beginning to as she's putting it together throughout the issue, I do like it a lot more. And when she whacks the sorority girls in the face, I'm looking at that now, and now that we've discussed the Riddler, she does that Riddler whack in the face. But it's a lot more. It's got a Harley twist to her. So I'm just seeing like the Riddler is on top of her, doing the big cane in the face type thing. So,
well, and her costume is very reminiscent of the game, Batman Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, I didn't play the game, but I saw the costume from the game, though.
Yeah, and I think I'd be interested to know, because I know the development of the New 52 was done over a long stretch of time, that this was, a process. I don't know if her costume in the game came first, or if this one did, or how that all worked out, or if it was kind of a hybrid of both. I don't really care. I think in the end, one of the things with the costumes that I've noticed, with the ones that stand out for me as ones that I have potential issues with or worries about, my big worry is when you see that a certain costume, you want to know, is my character now going to be completely unrecognizable in the way that the costume has shifted and changed too? In the end with her, it kind of fits the whole Harley Quinn theme anyway, which is pretty important to me. And the definition of the character, especially an issue like this, because this one was, our first real look at what her origin actually looked like. And I thought it was very satisfying to see that, like, wow, no, this is very much who I think she is. But it again moved her forward. I felt like this moved the character for me forward in a way that I felt like there's a sense of progression with her, kind of like what I saw with the Riddler, where I feel like the character now has got new legs. It's got, besides new leggings, and a new direction to her that doesn't lose anything that I've always loved about the character. I left this issue wanting more of Harley, which I think is not feeling like I got the same, but I've got something that makes me interested in where she goes from here. I want to see her in the Forever Evil event. I want to see what she and Deadshot do together in that event. And that's a really critical part to these issues do they make me care to see more of this character in the future or not? If I don't, it's a failure. If I do, home run. I thought this was a home run for that.
Oh, big time. Big time. Again, it's with the Forever Evil storyline that this is, again, it's offsetting, Batman is dead, the Justice League's dead, the villains are running amok. We're starting to see how the Suicide Squad's going to play out with this. We saw that, in the last issue of Suicide Squad, that they need, we saw with the Deadshot issue that Waller needs Suicide Squad to come in and rescue her. So Deadshot's slowly building the team. They're going to go and get her and whatnot. And I like just seeing just this attitude and style. We got Deadshot in for $12 million. That's how Waller was able to get him to go. With Harley, she's like, hey, let's do it. Let's rock. And I really don't think Deadshot's going to have to give her any money to do it. It's just, this is what she's going to do now. Okay, I'll do this. And she'll probably be loyal to Deadshot, probably won't double-cross the team, but you never completely can tell with the Suicide Squad. You never completely can tell with the villain team how they're going to react. And it's one of those neat things about Suicide Squad, about villain teams, and about Harley as a character. She's going to go one way or maybe shift the other or somewhere in between.
Jim, you talked about Forever Evil, and you were talking about Batman's dead, the Justice League's dead, and all that stuff. And from the Harley issue, it's right to think that way. I love that, jumping back really quick to the Riddler issue, I love that he's the one that suspects what's really going on, which was a brilliant part of that issue. The Riddler gets it. He sees the whole lay of the land when he was talking about Batman there. He wasn't thinking that Batman was dead.
No.
And I love how that played out, which shows, again, the unique nature of these particular villains, that each one of them would perceive the world around them differently, which I thought was cool.
Well, they know their hero well enough to know what he's capable of. It was like in the Forever Evil issue with Luthor, where he's like, "This is a job for Superman, so where is he?" And it's he's thinking, okay, Superman can't be dead because I didn't kill him. Where is he? And I can see Luthor having those same type of thoughts, and Two-Face has those same type of thoughts with the Two-Face issue. He didn't really think Batman was dead. He knew Batman wasn't there, but he never really said Batman must be dead. He just, okay, he's not here right now. So I love it. It's kind of a respect level they have back towards the hero.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's also a two-way street. That Batman's died a couple of times. In Bat history, Batman's died, Superman's died, Joker's died. Everybody dies, and they all come back, and everything's good. But I think you were talking about the respect for the heroes, that they know they're gone right now, but they're not necessarily dead, and then they'll come back, and the world will go on as, that balance will be restored to the universe, and the Force will be good, and stuff like that. But I think also the heroes, not having read the... what's the name of the issue that you were discussing?
Which?
You were saying, like, something dark, evil something?
Oh, Forever Evil.
Forever Evil, yeah. Just slipped my mind. Forever Evil.
We're taking it for granted that you're reading Forever Evil, which we got to remind ourselves that you're not. So that's...
Evil. But I think it's also the heroes trust the villains to be there. I think they feed off of each other. And Jim and I talked about this when we were talking about Killing Joke last time I was on, how the Joker needs the Batman and the Batman needs the Joker. And that's the balance of the universe, is they'll feed off of each other and they'll feed off of that energy. So yes, they're gone right now, but I think the villains trust the heroes to come back, and conversely, the heroes would trust the villains to come back, because that's just the way the world works. Is that you have both?
Yeah.
Something weird. Now I noticed this and I thought about it while it was going on, but it really didn't sink in. Something really didn't sink into as deep as it should have until just like pretty much right now, with the little Game Boy bomb that she set up. How, one, she's giving it out to all these people for free, but you look at the sequence right before they all start exploding. You have little children playing with these things. So this wasn't even just like going after targeting adults and, teenagers and whatnot. No, we got a little kid who probably... This is the only game, maybe system he had, and it was because it was given away for free out of just kindness. And she really just went on a killing spree here. This was a Joker level of just death bath, that it was all people, young and old, but just the fact that she could target little kids, kind of just like was a whoa kind of moment.
Well, I think it's interesting that yes, little kids died. That's the implication when everything goes boom. But she didn't specifically target. She's like, okay, little Jimmy over there, you're going to die. Little Susie, you're going to die. It wasn't that kind of a targeting thing. She didn't specify, specific people. She threw out the games. She said, go for it. Whoever gets the games, they get the games, and then everything goes boom. But you could see even at the end of the issue, that's not enough for her. She's trying to get that emotion, and she's trying to feel something. But I mean, even when she's giving out the games, and even when she knows what's going to happen, and then when everything goes boom, she's still, the expression on her face, and with the hammer over her shoulder, she's not getting it. She's not feeling that adrenaline rush that she did when she's running around with the Joker.
Yeah, she's missing. She doesn't have that energy and that excitement. And even when the police station blows up, she throws the dynamite in there, and she has that moment where she's like, yay! But when she's sitting in the coffee shop on the other side, just sitting there, it's the disassociation she has. And even to the point where there's a burning ember lands on her leg, and she just kind of looks at it, and then, just brushes it off, flicks it off with her finger, not even reacting to it. So it's like, she's kind of looking for that emotional rush, looking for that emotional high, and she doesn't have it. And even when, she calls in to tell Joe, hey, time to update the software ASAP, it's just da-da-da-da-da. There is no energy, there is no excitement, there is no emotion, conscience, any of that from her. She is kind of disassociated and sort of dead inside. And it's kind of interesting to think that, she would do this for a reaction, do this for this, rush of energy, and she's not getting anything. So maybe she does need to hang with Suicide Squad. Maybe she does need to hang with other people. Where, who knows where this is going to take her.
I think she does need to get back with Suicide Squad or with anybody, because she's a very social character. The Riddler can function on his own. Harley is one of those characters that, if she's on her own, she'll fizzle and die. We see that a little bit when she's by the coffee shop, when she's, blowing up the programs. She needs someone else to function. And I think that's another trait of the abusive relationship between her and Joker that we see at the very beginning, with that kiss, which was a little unexpected when he dumps her in the vat and he picks her up and he just embraces her and kisses her. And I was like, okay, well, that was unexpected. And even with the kiss earlier, before she turns into Harley Quinn, she was going in, and how can you help save someone until you've been in their shoes? He just looks at her and he just kisses her. But he's very angry, and, he's very aggressive with it, and he's got her by the throat. It could either be a kiss or he could be strangling her. But, it could go both. It could go either way.
And he would find humor in both.
And he would humor in both. I mean, he would humor in, she's some girl that he's got around, or he would humor in like, oh, well, she used to be a doctor and now she's dead and now I can go on with my life.
Where would you like to see Harley go from here? Do you guys have any thoughts on that or preference on that? What you want to see from the character from here on out? I know, Cassie, there's a difference in reading of her right now between Jim and myself. So just as a fan reading this in isolation, and when I say in isolation, taking into account obviously everything you've read about the character before, what would you like to see Harley's future have in it, maybe?
I definitely want Harley to either get back with the Suicide Squad or, find, even if she were to just be with Deadshot and not go back to the squad, I think that would do her character well, because I would be sad to see her just be a solo character, because I don't see her as a solo character. I see her as being partnered with someone. and feeding off of their energy and doing being with someone that she can work with.
Yeah, she is a team dynamic type player. She's a wonderful character, and I'm looking forward to solo stuff from her. But she does her personality does play off other people well. You know, and someone like Deadshot, who is the straight man to her wackiness, kind of adds to the energy. But also, he's a character who understands the multifacets of Harley Quinn. He knows she's not just this little crazy nut jobby that ran around with a Joker. There's, an intelligence to her. There is a nastiness to her. There is just the multi-sided and factions of her. He understands that and knows how to deal with that, and and actually can work with that. So it's he's a great combo with her. Her and the Suicide Squad is a great combo, but she's I want to see more stories coming out of her. I kind of always didn't like it when she was a doormat to the Joker, but now you see the fact that, was she really a doormat? She played the role, but was she actually that? Was it, her just getting in close to that life, getting in, freeing herself from all the other responsibility, freeing herself from all the restrictions before. And to do that, okay, I got to play the doormat role. Fine, I'll play the role, but that's not who I am. And it's kind of a neat side of her to see that she wasn't necessarily just, being used by the Joker. She was, in a way, using him for what she wanted. So it's
playing the doormat to accomplish the goal of getting him to feel the way for her that she wanted him to.
Exactly.
Yeah. That she would have a purpose through the Joker. That, again, with that identity thing is, if she's a doormat, she's his doormat. It's if she had just rolled over for Deadshot, she wouldn't be content like that. Because she doesn't feel anything for Deadshot, but to start out with the Joker and to get into that relationship with the Joker, she plays that role for him.
Are you reading Suicide Squad?
I read the first 14 issues of Suicide Squad and then stopped there.
So you saw some of their relationship develop.
The relationship. Oh yeah. The
with her and
relationship
Deadshot?
between them, yeah. But yeah, I mean that her relationship with Joker goes back to other storylines and other titles,
yes.
And that for me anyway, they'll always be the pair that I associate with each other. When I think of Harley, I think of Joker. I think of Joker, I think of Harley.
I like the relationship of her and Deadshot because it doesn't feel like it's recreating what she and the Joker had. I feel like its own unique relationship because of the fact that Deadshot is distinctly different than the Joker, and that relationship should feel different for that reason. So it shouldn't get in the way of that iconic... Like, I wouldn't put her with... There aren't many villains that are quite like the Joker. I wouldn't put her with, like, the Creeper or something like that because you've just got, I wouldn't put her with somebody as odd as the Joker, which is... Deadshot's odd in his own way, but there's distinct... huge personality differences that Deadshot trying to deal with Harley and her issues makes it far more interesting to see it that way. That if I want to see more of her and the Joker, I want to see her with the Joker, right, not with somebody else. So the choice was interesting because I never saw it coming. I never saw them trying to play around with her having a potential... It's hard to label what that is between the two of them, and I like that part of it. I like that you can't really label what the relationship is like between Deadshot, Harley. That to me is the way it should feel with those two. Because what do you guys label that?
I see a real relationship developing between these two. Even though they each have their own issues and they have their own psychoses, but it's kind of weird because, especially, we saw Deadshot's origins and we saw what made him the killing machine that he is, and it was the tragedy of being a child whose parents were gunned down at a young age, and you see with her with what made her family and her, messed up household where, yeah, they didn't get gunned down, but who knows? Actually, she may have been better off if they had gotten gunned down. Who knows where she would have been if she wouldn't have been saddled with that heavy burden of, her life before this. So I see the two of these characters and as kind of like that relationship, friendship, camaraderie, that's been growing between the two of them in the Suicide Squad. I'd like to see these two together I think it's weird to say, but I think they could make something kind of work. It won't be a completely clean, relationship. It won't be a Lois and Clark type of relationship, but it'll still be something, and it could be something positive for each of them.
Yeah, I don't know much about Deadshot, but I think a relationship with Deadshot would definitely be more healthy and more constructive for Harley, because he does let her, when he's part of this issue, he lets her do her own thing. That this is her project to do, and, she's going to do the execution of it. And, like I said before, the relationship between Joker and Harley was very destructive and very sad, and, part of the reason why I love Harley is that I feel for her, that it is very sad and tragic that she left her doctor life behind and she got tangled up with the Joker, and then she did Suicide Squad and she doesn't really know where she's going, but I feel for her as a character, and I think a relationship with Deadshot and working with him will definitely be good for her and will allow her to be more Harley and less like Joker's sidekick or like a secondary villain. I think she'll definitely become more of a primary villain when she's with Deadshot.
Oh, definitely agree on that, because initially when they first introduced her as part of the Suicide Squad, she was the Joker's crazy girlfriend. But as the characters had a chance to grow and develop, she's now her own player. And then with this backstory, we're seeing, yeah, she ran with the Joker. Yeah, she did stuff with the Joker, but the whole time she was her own person. She was her own mindset, and she did what she had to do just for the growth of the growth of the psychoses, growth of her kind of skewed. I don't want to say skewed moral code, but it is a skewed moral code. It is it's the growth of who she is and who she will become was needed each of these parts, and I think as part of the Suicide Squad, she's actually able to be more of herself, more of her own individual character. She's no longer just associated with the Joker.
I like that her chaos, her brand of chaos when she causes those events is driven by this need to connect herself with, to keep her from that disassociation. But there's also a intelligence, a plan, a effectiveness. Like the Deadshot recognizes that she is effective, is aware that she can kind of lose it and kind of go off and do completely chaotic and crazy things, and there's reasons why. We saw that when Joker, quote unquote, was dead, or when she thought he was dead, and how her reaction was to that when she ran to Gotham and the crazy things she was doing there. But that whole time, there's still that part of Deadshot that sees the other side of her, that sees her for what she is, that makes her different than just being Joker's sidekick. I like that about her. She's complex. She's become a very complex character. She always was. Her solo series developed a lot of that too. But this has, I think the New 52 and the development of her has added more unique layers to her. I do attest some of this to the game. Her popularity in the game has made them focus more on her as a character without losing what makes her the one we know and love. Because this is a character who came out of the animated series and was brought into the comic book world because of their popularity there. They've done a remarkable job of taking this character that was really made for that purpose and integrating her so faithfully into comics that she has taken on a life well beyond her original intention.
You see, I never knew she was developed. She was born out of the animated series. I always thought she was in the comic, and then the animated series.
I always thought that she was part of the comics first. That
no.
her in. Yeah.
And that actually makes sense with the beginning of the issue where they said Harley Quinn created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, because that was the Dini-verse, and he was the senior editor for. The editor for the series, so it's okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
I didn't know that.
What happened was she became so popular in that animated series that they eventually did a one-shot for her, bringing her into the comics universe. She just continued to thrive here as more and more creators got their hands on using her. She really did develop a life of her own. I mean, to the point where we're seeing her in things like Suicide Squad. Yes, we associate her with the Joker, but I think we associate her now well beyond that, connection. To the point where if she's never connected with the Joker again at this point, I don't think it's any longer necessary. I think you certainly can, and it'd be nuts not to, because there's a point to every so often having her get tied into all that, because it's fun to kind of see her revisit that. But I certainly don't see her ever becoming a sidekick again, or exclusively a sidekick again.
And just, we talked a little bit about the art, but I really just got to say how much I loved this look, especially this last page where we got Harley and Deadshot just standing over there. The backdrop is all the exploding buildings, and just they're both in a really cool pose. He's got the big gun just ready to rock. She's got the hammer just kind of draped over the shoulder, but just that look on her face. I absolutely just love how this thing looks. This right here is a poster. I would love to have this poster, boom, because this was like, wow, this looks beautiful.
Neil Googe's use of facial expression.
Yes.
Throughout this issue was incredibly stellar, because Harley Quinn, it's not like what emotions she showed. It's what emotion, like, is there one that she didn't show in all of this? I really, you could pick out specific emotions he showed, but he also touched on everything in between. There were layers of her building to certain emotions, or conflicted over certain emotions that were brought out here that I thought were really stellar. I felt like there was a deep emotional connection with her throughout this issue, and that crazy, crazy journey that she went on. And I like that. I really find that that's something that it's subtle, not in your face. And I think that's a talent, knowing when as an artist to say to yourself, okay, we're going to take our readers on an emotional journey, but the only way to do that is through this. And I just thought it was cool.
Well, and I love, as we're talking about facial expressions, I love the series of facial expressions. If you go to the 2 pages, one right before the big kiss, and the page where she gets thrown into the vat, and the page with the big kiss. And those 2 pages together, there's such an exploration of, there's so much emotion in those pages, because the first panel, she's very blank. She's very, I'm going to go into this. I'll be okay. This is okay. And then as soon as she, she's very scared going into the vat. And then as soon as she comes out, she doesn't know what to do. She's scared. And the last 2 panels, if you look, she's biting her lip. She's biting down on her lip, and she's looking back. She's not looking at the Joker, but she's looking sort of over her shoulder as he's pulling at her hair. And I think that expression, and the expression right after that when she looks directly at him, is very important, because that's summing up Harley and her origin, her immediate origin of going in to the asylum and then going into the vat. I think it sums it up perfectly, with that she's looking back, but she's scared, but she's excited, and she's biting her lip. And then the next panel over, she's kissing the Joker, and you don't see her face at all. You just see, he's pulling her hair, and you see his eyes, and you see the anger and the nastiness behind him, but you don't see her expression.
And actually, even continuing on that, the next page, when she's on her own, when she starts building her costume, starts building who she is, that first opening panel, she's kind of got what do I do now look? Huh? She had that lost look where she's just trying to figure, and then she sees him. She's like, hey, here we go. Yeah. She cracks him with the thing, then mugs the mugger, then takes the big hammer. And then just as she's starting to go through and just like building and building and building to just this final, outpouring where she gets the full costume. We see her in the mall with the cops chasing her down, and just everything with just that pure energy and excitement going on. And just as those panels are going through, it was really cool. Just if you just take a time to do an art read through and just look at it. And there was a little piece that I missed, when I was initially reading it. It actually wasn't until like the second or third, maybe even read through, that I saw it. It's in the art sequence, the mall sequence where all the cops are shooting at her, and you see her fighting. You see some carnage down at the bottom of some store she bashed out, which I'm assuming was probably going for the shoes that she's currently wearing, because it looks like a shoe store. But the one I like is the one cop. He's nicking her in the leg. He got really close to getting to her. You can even see the cut into the sleeve as it went by. And I kind of like the fact that, there is this real risk and danger to her.
Which store are you talking about, Jim, in that panel?
If you're looking at the mall, look down at the bottom. Past where the cops are below the escalator shooting at her, that smashed out window where it looks like she probably threw somebody from store out to mall, by the way the glass is broken and the fact that... Oh,
yeah, I see it, yeah.
But that's a shoe store, and I'm assuming that... Because looking at all the different pieces of the costume as she's building, that looked to me to be the final piece to the puzzle. Because
she had the shoes on in that panel, and she did in the previous panels.
Exactly. So that was like the final piece of it. And I was like, I really liked the fact that how this even... Because that was something I didn't notice the first time. I just thought it was just her being Carly. I'm like, no... That was her getting her shoes. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
And I love the panel before that when she gets the neck piece.
Yeah.
When she's with the scared little boy, and I don't think I can do that. And she's flirting with him, and she's like, it's not against the law or nothing. And she takes it, and she's got the hammer over his arm. Aren't you cute? And she gets it that way. She doesn't have to beat him up, but she uses her girlish charm and her chaotic, she doesn't have to punch him, she doesn't have to do it, but she kisses him lightly, and then she goes and causes a bunch of chaos. And I think that's another layer of Harley that we're seeing, that she's not out to destroy the world, but she's there to put her mark on it.
Yeah, it's you can actually spend a long time just talking and looking at Harley, and it's kind of it's one of those neat things about her as a villain, that you can spend so much time, you can spend so much just thought into what she's about, where she's going, and what her motivation is, and actually in the end, it could be something completely different. There could be a whole other thing that we're missing on her.
Well, that's, I think, a distinct characteristic of your best heroes and villains is the fact that the character's so well developed that there's a diversity to the emotions, the kind of stories you can tell, to the action, the adventure, and you could put another character in the same situation she just went through, and it's going to look 100. You could redo the issue, different character. The whole way it played out is going to look very differently, because of the fact that the other character would be so well defined that they would go on a very different journey. That's one of the nice things about Harley. You could take any story that's ever been written and plug Harley in as the main character, and now all of a sudden the story's going to go in a strangely different direction, because she is so well created and you can yet tell something new about her, because you learn new things about real people all the time. But there are core characteristics, core values, core whatever you want to call it, that is in that character's background that if they're there and they're present, make them uniquely identifiable. And Harley Quinn certainly is that, very uniquely identifiable. It's funny, both of the characters we're talking about are that. They've got rich histories. They've appeared so many different places. Harley Quinn in particular, if you take a look at the Batman the Animated Series, her huge roles there. then take it into comics, she's really had a huge life in comics. She's been in various team books. She's been in her own solo series. She's been Joker's sidekick. She's been kind of a solo villain. She's kind of done it all. It's just amazing that the character continues to have a purpose and stories told about her. She is somebody who you immediately want to appear in other media, such as video games and things like that, because she's clever and, charismatic, and she's going to add something to the mix. You've got a game with the Joker in it, but why is Harley present? Because there's something different about her that just makes you go, all right, that's a little, that's what's great. It's a cool character, and I'm glad to see that it's a character that was not lost to animation. And when I say lost to animation, meaning that she just got stuck there and we never got to see her elsewhere. That writers were able to take her beyond just that television series.
Well, that's one of the draws that I have to Harley. Harley's one of my favorite all-time characters. And the draw that she has for me is that she's so young that, I'm almost 20 and she looks that age. She looks 22, 23, but she's, I feel like she's around my age, and I could see she's very identifiable. So, I can't identify with the Joker or the Riddler or, any of those other villains because, of the age and of the style, and every character's distinctly different. But that's one of the things I love about Harley is she appeals to the younger readers.
Mm-hmm. Now, does it make me an irresponsible uncle that I'm like, cool, my niece, goes right along, gets with, understands Harley. Wait,
She didn't say that she wants to be Harley.
I didn't say I wanted to be Harley. I think.
Okay.
Bill's in the room right now, so if I said that, he'd pull me off. He said, "Jim, what have you done to my daughter?"
I love that she's calling her dad Bill.
Well, I mean.
I know, I get what you were doing. You're like, I'm on the air, I want to reference the name and all that. I get it. I knew where you were going with this. But I thought it was really funny that, because there was no identification that Bill is dad. We're cool like that.
Well, and Bill said, you should probably be more concerned if I wanted to be Harley. But Jim knows this, but Sean, you don't know this. I actually dressed up as Harley Quinn for Halloween 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was Harley Quinn for Halloween, and it was sort of a last minute thing. So I took one of those pantsuits. It was a red pantsuit, and I cut diamonds in it and wore black under it. So I cut the leg off and I cut the arm off, and it was very sort of a Harley kind of patchy type thing. And I made the costume, but I wore the more classic costume that you saw in the animated series, mm-hmm. where it's red on the one side and the black, where she looks a lot more like a card than with the New 52, with the stockings and the corset and, I went with a lot of the more classic look. I didn't get the big hat, but, but with the half and half, I was going a lot for that look, and it was a lot more, it was a lot of fun doing that kind of thing.
I like that about her. I think she's a character where you can customize the costume as long as you get certain elements to it. It's still identifiable as Harley because she's a female. And the cool part about what Harley's costume is, yes, there's been that clearly defined costume over the years, but we've seen her kind of customize it up every so often. And I think that's something, they do that with Power Girl every so often. And I think there's something to be said to doing that from time to time with female characters, because that's going to be something that, I think makes them unique in the sense that, you could tweak the costume a little bit here, tweak the costume, her whole shopping expedition, I thought was really cool because it made sense. The character along the way was accessorizing, and making an outfit in a way that makes sense. So the costume change works more when you see it develop the way that it does here. Her costume now has a story. It's not just a design choice by an artist. It's a story that led from A to B, and that instantly makes me not think at all about, like, okay, the costume doesn't make sense. I don't like the it's not my classic Harley costume or anything like that. I'm like, this story is so Harley that, like, I'm all of a sudden like, I'm all for this costume because of the story that led to the creation of it. So when you were talking about the way you kind of modified her costume, like, I didn't do the hat, but, I kind of did that. That's still uniquely Harley, the way that you did the costume. Now, to show my growing concern about the throwaway comment from before, did Bill dress up as Harley Quinn?
No, Bill did not dress up as Harley Quinn.
Okay.
The deal...
You know what? I'll throw $20 into the mix if he'll do that. But there has to be photographic evidence that I have in my possession.
I want the whole... Wait. I'll double that as long as I want the whole, like, it's got to be the corset, like the way that all built up. I'm like, well, okay. So there's 40 in it.
$40. Well, here, I'm going to get Bill over here now. Dad, come over here. Dad, come over here for the recording. I'm going to get Bill on right now, and you guys can tell him that you'll... The deal is, Dad, is Jim and Sean will give you $40 if you dress up like Harley Quinn, and Jim has photographic evidence.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Oh, why not, bro? Come on, it'd be great. I think you could pull off the look, really.
Oh, Jim, say that one again.
Really, man, I think you could pull off the look. I think you could do it.
It's called the New 52, and you're going $40.
I think you have to go...
Okay, well, wait, hold on. I'll add the other 12 in.
Hey, maybe I've been trying to think of a Kickstarter campaign. Maybe this will be my Kickstarter campaign.
Dress up Bill like Harley.
I'm trying to get my brother to dress up like Harley Quinn. I need X amount of money. Give me what's the final number, Bill? What do I need to do to get you dressed like Harley Quinn?
We could do we could do stretch goals too. Like, you get to decide on the corset. You get to.
Well, I've been designing Dad's costumes, since I had this whole thing about Halloween, and I always design I've been making my own costumes since like the 7th grade or whatever, and I'll come up with a concept, I'll make a couple trips to the thrift store and piece together a costume. Jim, I'll have to send you the picture of me in the Harley suit so you can actually have photographic evidence of one of the Segulins dressing up as Harley. But,
He's the last person in the world I'd see dressing up as Harley Quinn, which is why I'm so fascinated by it. Knowing your brother Bill like I do, like, yeah. There's no way I ever see that happening on any planet anywhere. It would be so worth $52.
Well, the deal that I made with Dad a couple years back was I'll make his costumes, like, because he's like, I don't do Halloween, and I'm too old, like grumpy old man type of thing, and Jim, I need to get on your case about dressing up for Halloween, because, for crying out loud, man, you have a DC Comics podcast, and you don't dress up for Halloween. I think we need to change that. Give Jim your $52, Sean.
Well, for me in a Harley Quinn costume, there is a number, and it is associated with 52, but it's $5.2 million. $5.2 million. I will put on a Harley Quinn costume.
I've got to be honest with you. You would do it for less. like you're sitting there saying that that's your line. I know you well enough because you've done, like, this is a guy who, like, when we were watching wrestling and you had your fantasy wrestling league, used to come over to pay-per-views dressed up as wrestlers. So, like, you saying that it's 5.2 million's your cutoff, and I'm not knocking you for coming, those were very funny, but the amount of care and thought you put into that with no monetary exchange, there is absolutely no way that it would take $5.2 million to get that to happen. You would do it for $520 with no hesitation. And I'm right.
I will neither confirm nor deny that statement.
Jim, I know he's right, and I'm your niece. So. I think that's all the But the deal that I made with Dad is a couple years ago I made him a Invisible Man costume. We're talking, classic with the bandaged head, the goggles.
You haven't seen him since? Oh,
funny. But I dressed him. You know, I didn't make him Invisible Man, but I did the Griffin's costume with the bandages and the gloves and that whole thing. And Jim, I do have a picture of that one. But that if I put together his Halloween costume, then he'll dress up for Halloween. So, I mean, I've been slacking off the past couple of years, but I've been tossing around a bunch of ideas. None of them have been Harley Quinn, but Jim, I'll have to send you that picture of the costume that I put together a couple of years back.
I think I have that. I think I have it.
I don't know if I sent you... I have... There's a picture of... No. The picture of me isn't on Facebook because I went to a party at a friend of mine's, and he was dressing up like a giant chicken. So I have a picture of me in the costume, dressed with... It was me in the costume, and then there's the giant chicken suit on top of the costume, so you can only see the collar of the costume. You can't actually see the full costume.
You know,
it's me as a giant chicken. It's me as Harley Quinn as a giant chicken.
Instead of talking about what we don't want to dress at, it's funny that like you're mentioning. No. I actually want to put like a seriousness to it because you talk about like costuming and things like that. And I'm not one when I go to conventions. I don't normally do like cosplay and stuff like that. But I love dressing up for Halloween and stuff like that. And it's not one of those things where I'm snooty and I look at people who dress up. Like I genuinely like love going to conventions and seeing people dressed up. So I like that. I mean, that to me is part of the convention environment. And I marvel at the people that get it right, the ones that like understand themselves and understand the characters and, you know, hey, I can pull off this look and I'm going to do a style of this. Or even the ones that like are dressing up as a character when they know it's horribly wrong, and they have some kind of humor.
It anyway, yeah.
Well, but I mean, they have a sense of humor about it, like, you know, they know that like maybe their materials were cheap or something like that, or they come up with some clever joke. That kind of stuff to me, it brings a lot of personality to, like, Unemployed Skeletor is still one that's going to stand out in my head. Some guy came as Skeletor, but like dressed himself up in a way where, you know, it was like he was, you know, basically an out of work guy. It was great. It was a cool little, and every time I saw him, I like immediately connected to that guy. Where I'm going with this is, are there characters, whether it's for conventions or for Halloween or for any other type of event, is there a character that like is your dream one to dress up as, or one that you would love to just say, hey, I'd love to be that character, to like pull that outfit off just the right way? Because I want to nail this one. I want it to be like the one that people will like kind of go, wow, when you did that, that was neat.
I've never dressed up for a convention before, but I've always wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. I think Harley's always been one of my, you know, being such a big Harley fan, it's always been, you know, I'm going to dress up like Harley for Halloween. It's going to be awesome. So I think, you know, if I wanted to break that costume again, I'd make a couple of modifications, make it look a little bit cleaner, but keep it with the classic animated series. And I was also kicking around being, you know, loving the DC universe and that whole thing. Also kicking around being Poison Ivy. That was one of my ideas for Halloween this year, was doing Poison Ivy, but doing like the animated series with the green stockings and the leotard, and then having the leaves go over that, and sort of a basic Poison Ivy costume. And that's something that I've always wanted to dress up for as well. And the powerful women in comics, because I think there are plenty of powerful women in comic books.
Agreed.
To choose from. So,
Jim, what about you? Is there anybody that, I mean, I know, because see, the funny thing is, we do the joking about costumes, but you've, in the time I've known you, and going back to the wrestling thing, I was joking around about it. There was times where you like showed up on the scene dressed as certain characters, knowing that not only we'd get a laugh, but we'd immediately identify who you are. Yeah. So there was a certain amount of care that you put in that. Have you ever like been at a convention or for Halloween or for any reason? It doesn't have to be for the convention purpose. Is there a character that like you're saying, I would love to be able to pull this character off right, and just because I think it'd be cool?
I always actually I always wanted to do some type of the hero costume, but to be honest, I never felt I had what you would call a classic superhero physique. I can pull off the penguin look, I'm kind of pear-shaped like he is, but that's always been my main thing where I'm like kind of shying me away from it. But Two-Face is a character that I always would love to be able to do that prosthetic, do that look, and actually create the dual face. A buddy of ours, Zigo, did it for the one convention, and he had a really cool look when he did his Two-Face, and I was like, man, that looks cool. I wish I had that kind of like the makeup skills and all that to do the split face and just to actually have a really cool Two-Face look.
And see, he was one of the things I respect about him is his confidence. Like he would come up with characters that he knew he could pull off and wanted to find unique ways to really hit a home run with that. And that's the thing. I'm with you on the lack of confidence with it. Like, obviously, Batman's my go-to guy. I would love to do, like, a great Batman costume at a convention. But to me, I don't want to come off... Like, I've seen people at conventions that have nailed it, where it's like, wow, that's really impressive. Either they have, like, the physique for the more cloth look, or they had the more armored look in a costume that, like, really looked like it was, something from one of the movies done right. And when I see that kind of stuff, that's what I would want to do if I was going to do Batman. If I couldn't, and I don't have the confidence, because I don't have the skill set you're mentioning either. So that's my issue. The other one I really wanted to do, too, which I think I could pull off if I got the right materials, would be the Jack Knight Starman. Because I just really think that his costume set was really cool. It's a more... I guess probably to newer readers, it's a more obscure character because it was very isolated to that particular run. But I think his costume is just very cool. And I've always liked the overall look of that character. I remember that being what drew me to the book originally. But when that Zero issue came out, I remember seeing the poster where they were showing all the different characters they were going to launch in that series. And that was one that, that's probably a dream character that I would love to pull off right someday, and that one I would love to. I think that'd be just a cool look. I'd feel cool like going around a convention looking like that. I'm always impressed by people who have the self-confidence and the skill set to really try and do comic book or pop culture. Anyway, I shouldn't say comic book, because even when I'm not watching the anime or the films or whatever, the television series that like somebody's dressing up as, or even reading the comic that somebody's dressing up as, I'm in awe and impressed when people will do that or maybe develop their own costume, of a unique character. Because there's people that at conventions have developed their own unique characters, and they just like, hey, this is a spot to kind of like practice, my cosplay skills or things like that. And there's a certain amount of confidence that I think you need to have to go on a convention floor. But I remember reading somebody saying that, like, going to a convention is very different when you cosplay, because everyone wants pictures with you and pictures of you, and your experience is drastically different. You can't, because you're no longer able to kind of blend into the line and just go to a panel and just kind of absorb that experience. You're a spectacle. You're on display. People want to stop you for pictures, and you might do a group photo with people who are similarly themed or something like that. It changes your convention experience, and I think just that confidence and that feeling that you want to do something like that always impresses me. I don't have that, but I would love to be able to put together a costume that I felt confident enough to do that with at some point, because I just think that's really cool. When it's the right look. But those are my two that I would love to get right, and I see myself more being able to pull off finding what I would consider a suitable Jack Knight Starman costume than I do a Bat costume that I think I could pull off the right way.
I think one of the things that comics are becoming more popular with the younger generation, with the movies and the widespread, but I also think cosplaying and dressing up is becoming more prevalent at conventions and stuff, because the young people are getting so excited about it, about being their favorite characters or taking on a challenge of, my roommate is going to be Frodo for Halloween.
Cool.
Which takes a lot of, she's not going to throw on a cape and do this, but she's going to go through the whole thing with the cloth and the styling of the hair and the hairy feet and she's going to do the whole 9 yards. And another friend of mine is going to made up her own character, but wants to practice her skills with gelatin prosthetics.
Okay.
So this summer, she's been doing a full facial mold. She's been covering herself up in plaster, doing prosthetics, going the whole 9 yards for Halloween. And people will do that or more than that for these conventions. And it's becoming a very popular thing.
And the importance of gaming to that should be added in as well, because I've noticed at conventions, everything that we've mentioned, people dress up as, but video game characters, very popular video game characters, are becoming more and more prevalent as well. And I think comic book characters and film characters bleeding over into that world has also led to more cosplay. And I just think that stuff is really great, because I think, to me, the survival of comics is drastically tied to the ability of comic book characters and comic book properties and concepts to bleed over into other media. Because I think that's a way to latch on to new fans, new readers, to just see what this content's all about. And, the story delivery. When I talk about digital comics on the show, and the reason why I think digital is so important is because I think that it's a gateway, if used right, to hitting an audience that would maybe never have considered touching a comic book before. Whether it's a digital comic of a video game character, or it's a comic book characters going into video games and then having some of those digitally free within the comic. Within the game, I should say. Those are things that I think are critically important to reaching a new audience. And cosplay and stuff like that, people just wondering, like, who is that character? I think those type of things are real good, connecting points for people to maybe check out those properties. Because if people are fan enough to dress up as those things, there must be something to it. Because to be that passionate, that's usually not a throwaway thing. I think that's neat. I think it's funny that I don't know how we got on this cosplay tangent.
I think because we were talking about Jim dressing up as Harley Quinn. And remember we were talking about the Harley Quinn
Yeah,
costume?
we did.
That's how I got into it. Yep.
Yeah.
5.2 million.
5.2 million. Well, and also, one of the important things about conventions and cosplay is it just, reading the comic book is one thing, but seeing it at conventions, especially being a young person, I started going to cons when I was very young, and just seeing some of these characters that I had, looked at, oh my goodness, that's a stormtrooper, and I'm gonna freak out because I'm a 10-year-old, and oh my goodness, it's a stormtrooper. Yeah, Bill says Jim still freaks out when he sees stormtroopers. You've been ratted out, Jim.
Again, I'm not denying that statement.
He's not denying that statement. But it just makes it all more real, because there's something about, when I saw Star Wars when I was little, it was awesome and it was cool, and there was Darth Vader and there was all this Jedi stuff. And then when I go to conventions and I see stormtroopers running around like, everyday run-of-the-mill, I always dress up like this. It just makes it that much more real. And I think especially with these different interpretations and different characters, if you see 10 different David Bowies, and then you get all of these interpretations and all of this love for these characters and for this, for the comic book or for the movie or for whatever, you're feeling a lot of that love, but it just makes it that much more magical when you go to these cons and when you read these comic books. I love that we're glossing over the fact that all it would take now is 10 stormtroopers in a changing room.
What? We could have him in a Harley Quinn costume for free.
No. 5.2 million. I'm still holding to that number.
You said 520.
No, Sean said 520.
And I stand by that. Although I'm still convinced that 10 stormtroopers in a changing room will do it now after what Brother Bill said.
Well, 10 stormtroopers at a con are easy enough to find, so watch out, Jim.
That would make quite the photo op.
Hey, I would pay to see that. 10 stormtroopers and Jim in a Harley Quinn costume.
Wait, I think we could sell that as a documentary. The build up to it, and then.
Hey, Jim, I've got people in the film video department at Drexel that would I've got connections, man. That'll be
Yeah, I know.
Jim Segulin, My Life in Tights.
Ethan Bullets featuring Sensei Whatnot in tights.
That or the working title is "There Goes My Last Piece of Dignity."
Harley Troopers.
I think the listener count would go up. You'd be like, "Oh, I get to listen to the guy who dressed up like Harley. I'll listen to this podcast."
Oh.
Thanks.
We'll call him the sensei.
Now. You do realize that, Cassie? He is never going to let this go.
He'll be the sensei of the why not.
It's for the good of the podcast.
Oh my god.
Jim, it's for the good of the podcast.
Yeah, where's your dedication?
How dedicated are you to this podcast? Yeah, take one for the team, Jim.
Hey, what team we playing on here? Hold on.
That's a good question, Jim. I'll get back to you on that later.
Well, that'll be in the documentary. We can't reveal everything.
Yeah, I know,
Nobody will buy it.
I think people would still buy it to see Jim dress up.
Yeah. See, this is the way Cassie and Hal get the $5.2 million. Well, Cassie, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Yes.
As always, it was enlightening.
Learned some things about Jim that we did not know before.
And we should never have found out. But we'll definitely have you back out in the future, because this was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And
Jim
let's
and
get a couple
Sean-
shout-outs for you. Yeah, because I know you got your local shop and whatnot.
For those of you in Union County, New Jersey, shout out to Little Shop of Comics and Cards 2 in downtown Scotch Plains. Great people, Lena and Steve, and I've been going there for years. To those in the Philadelphia area, University City, all my college people, shout out to Locust Moon on 40th and Locust Street. I've been going there since been going to college, so just over a year now, and I've always been very pleased with the guys there and the atmosphere, so you guys should definitely check it out. And Jim, also, I'll get you a picture of my Halloween costume this year and of the Harley Quinn one, because I'm going to be Carrie from the 1976 movie Carrie.
Nice.
So I'm going to do the whole dress and the blood and the whole thing, so I'll send you a picture of that.
Cool.
So thank you guys again for letting me come onto the show.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Hi, my name is Jack Dower, and I'm a longtime fan of the show. First, I want to start off with condolences to Dr. Norge. I, too, have lost my parents. I lost my dad, and both my grandparents, actually. So I know it's tough, man. But, the Lord will pull you through. So my condolences. Secondly, I want to thank you both. You and the doc and the sensei of the whatnot are the reason that I podcast today. You guys, you brought a passion and a skill to podcasting that I thought was reserved for professionals, and you guys, you guys were having so much fun. And when I found out that Sean is a teacher and Jim was working bank security, I was like, hey, maybe I can do this too, And I've met a lot of friends and stuff through it, and you guys are responsible for inspiring it. So thank you. But I do have a question. I am a humongous fan. What brought me to comic books is Burgess Meredith's portrayal of the monocled mountebank. And I understand the New 52 Penguin is not the Burgess Meredith Penguin, because that one wouldn't fit in the New 52, except in the Batman 66 comics. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I love what they did with Penguin in the New 52. So my question is, what characters do you think villain-wise, should get a New 52 makeover. Or even heroes. I hear they're going to be doing Adam Strange. And what kind of makeover would you like to see them get? All right. Thank you again, and have a great day.
So, Jim, did you have any characters that, like, you haven't had a New 52 makeover yet that you were thinking to yourself, hey, wow, I'd love to see this character, redone for a new generation?
Well, it's weird. There's one who did get a physical makeover that I gotta say, I like the way he looked before, and I would like for them to go back to his old look. Now, the way the character's written is absolutely wonderful. So, and to be honest, the artwork is good, so I'm not knocking the physical art portrayal. I just like from Suicide Squad. I like Shark. I think he looks... I personally like him better as the Great White as opposed to the Hammerhead style. And again, I'm not knocking, because that was one of the characters when we saw the initial look like, I don't know. But as I'm reading it, it's not like I don't pick it up and go, oh man, that's wrong, because it's a good character and it's solidly drawn and I'm enjoying the series. But if I have to pick my just personal preferences, I would say that's a character off the top of my head that I wish they kind of undid the makeover. Let's bring back the Great White style for him.
You know why I agree with you on that? And I agree with you on everything you said about, like, the art being good. I love the visual look of Suicide Squad and everything, so I'm with you on that end. He looked more like a tank before. Like with his build and, just that style of him. For some reason, it seemed more fierce to me than the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead almost seems more cartoony to me out of the two versions and less scary. I don't know why that's where I'm registering at, but I love the character. I love the book. So Suicide Squad, I think, is a home run hit as far as a read goes, but I'm with you. My preference would be for him to jump back in visual look, because I just think that there's something more impressive about that. Is there anybody that hasn't had a makeover that you'd like to see?
Well, I'd like to see Black Lightning. I thought I always thought he was a great character.
Well, he was in the DC Comics Presents.
Right. But I'd kind of like to see more, well, put it this way, more usage of him as well as his family.
Okay.
I think, especially the daughters and just everything, how they had, the thunder and lightning powers, and I think that's a family unit that they're not that's not being used enough, in my opinion. I'd like to see, that character, be more used.
I'm with you on that. That's one of the reasons why I'm sad that series is no longer around, because I liked what they were doing with that, how they were, giving some characters and opportunities a shot that we maybe haven't seen, just because, and maybe wouldn't work in a series right now. But I agree with you I get what you're saying. You're saying we got to see a makeover, but it didn't really get fleshed out because we only had so much time with the character. Starman is one that I would love to see. And I'd love to see what Robinson did. I'm not saying it has to be Robinson that does this. I would love to see someone with a creative concept do what Robinson did when he revamped him. I thought that series, what was so great about it is it made the character trendy for an era. And that 80-issue run really, for me, I feel like encapsulates a time period in comics. And it was some of the best comics being developed at that time. I would love to see that. And that was, kind of like what they did when they revamped Sandman. They turned that into a huge series. It's hard to call that that's kind of an imagining on a whole different level from start to finish when they did that series with Vertigo. I'd like to see something done with Starman like that, because I just think it's a cool concept. I think there's a way to make it relevant to today, and I'd love to see something trendy like that take off, and just have another really creative run where it feels more. I guess what I liked about Starman, it was a part of the DC universe, but it always felt creator owned in its presentation, and I think there's something to be said about that in the unique quality of the storytelling that you get that's developed. It felt like it was something timeless. It felt like film noir. It felt like it was so many different things rolled into one that I would love to see something like that redone for today. And I'm not saying that it should be Jack Knight. It could be. I'd be thrilled with that. But I would also be just as thrilled if they found a way to take that concept and bring it to today with a new character. And maybe it wouldn't be Starman. Maybe I'm not pinning it down to it being Starman. I'd like something like that stands out. Something like The Question. Something like, that kind of character that kind of is trendy. Because The Question did that back in its day, too. It was kind of a cult classic that really was cutting edge. And Denny O'Neil was, that reimagining of that character I thought worked so well. I'd like to see something like that. So I guess I am thinking bigger than it just being Starman. I would love to see it be something like that, some kind of trendy concept to come out that's more street level, which is what I liked about those two characters. And I love, this new Question that they brought in, but that's more of a, godlike character, kind of like the Phantom Stranger.
Right, yeah.
Like what they were doing with, and it doesn't have to be Renee Montoya. I'd like just some kind of street level character like that that's just, trendy and just a little different look on the DC universe. So it could be a reimagining of The Question, could be Starman, could be another character in that vein. But I would love to see something like that brought into the DCU, because I think there's room for like a detective-ish film noir, but not a Batman book. And I know that as a huge Batman fan, that might be seem like a weird thing to say, but I want it to be something that's separate from that, because Opal City was not a Bat book, and the Question was not a Bat book. Those characters both encountered Batman, but they were not a part of Batman's world directly. They were part of the same shared universe, but not directly. And I think there's room for that in the DC universe, and I'd love to see it.
You kind of stole my completely, as you're talking Question, I'm thinking, man, Renee Montoya would be awesome to bring her back, because the only indications we've had of her, she was on the memorial wall, in one of the scenes in Batwoman. So supposedly she died somehow. I'm not exactly sure her death or where that came from or whatnot, if she's even actually dead. So that's the only, I'd like to see her come back somehow. And, I loved her as The Question. So that was, a really cool role for her, because of her detective nature, because of that street level that you talk about. And another character that just popped in my head, and it's the group, Shadow Pack. We've got a couple really cool characters from there that we really haven't seen, especially Ragman. He was a character that was introduced late to him, and I started reading a couple more stories, and every so often you get a little single one shot story about him. But I kind of like the character. I like the concept of just the souls, earning redemption through his forced participation, if you will, because there's a lot of times the souls trapped in the rags aren't that willing, and sometimes they do learn and they get their retribution that way. And I kind of like that character. I think he's someone that they could bring back and maybe do some cool stuff with that.
I'd love to see them take one of the alternate Earths and kind of do what they're doing with Earth 2 with some of the teen sidekicks that have vanished. Donna Troy, Wally West, Roy Harper, that group. And I'm not saying that you have to put them in that they're still in the old continuity. I'm saying, like, boot that universe into a modern day imagining of what if those sidekicks were running today, but a little bit older, if that makes sense. Not the Teen Titans age right now, but kind of a little older, like what they had with Titans, but a reimagining of them. Where they've got to live up to their Earth's version of the Justice League and make them background characters. Kind of what the Young Justice cartoon did, but I would do this with, taking full advantage of the fact that it's an alternate Earth. Not being beholden to the traditional storytelling. Kind of like, I really am thinking kind of like what they did with Earth 2. But these characters that people are like saying, hey, wouldn't it be great to have Cassandra back, that Batgirl, and Stephanie Brown and stuff like that. Why not put those characters on an alternate Earth, but reimagine them, and make little tweaks and things like that where, it's at the core, they're those characters, but New 52'd up, where we're getting new stories with them, and we don't necessarily know their whole backstory. That's something that would be developed over time in those books, and we would learn over time what is different about that Earth from ours. And you could have some real fun with that. But, again, like Donna Troy, I'd love to read more Donna Troy. How great to have her on that world. She doesn't fit in the New 52 right now. Is it possible they could bring her in the future? Yes. And I think that would be cool, and I don't think this means that you can't do that. If I'm making sense. This would be kind of a good way to bring some of these characters in Connor Hawke, that were that second new generation of characters. But then you could do a version of Dick Grayson over there, a version of Kyle Rayner over there, or something like that. I don't know.
We could have Wally.
Well, that's what I meant. Wally. I threw Wally West in there before. Those are the characters. Roy Harper. I know we're both big fans of Roy Harper. I would love to see that character in there. And maybe you could do Roy where Roy had the thing with Cheshire, and the daughter's back or something. I don't know. But I don't know that you have to be beholden to anything that happened with those characters prior to the New 52. I don't know that I want that. I would like those characters back because I think that they're interesting characters. And I think you can still bring them back and do what you did with the New 52 with them on an alternate world where half the fun is seeing what's also different about their world. But them being that generation, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. And, when you look at alternate Earths, I always liked the Earth where the genders are reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, there's only been I've only read a handful of stories of it, so it's usually just a kind of throwaway blip here, blip there. But that's a world I think they could actually, the right creator could have some fun with that and actually, delve into just the differences of men and women and how a female version of Batman would handle her circumstances, or a female version of Superman would handle her circumstances, being that she is the most powerful person on that planet, and just where the world would go, how it would be different. Would the female heroes, because it would be a female dominant hero world, would they handle their roles as heroes differently? Would they look at their responsibility differently? It's because, men and women, we do look at life differently. We do think of things, and handle situations different. So I think that would be a fascinating, I'd say ongoing, because I personally would buy it because I think it'd be neat. But even if anything else, just like a limited series or just a run on that multiplicity that they keep talking about bringing out there. This could be a story arc. That
Multiversity.
Multiversity, yeah. So I think that's something I would really like to see, and especially a reimagining. Let's take what we have and then redo it. So it's going to be, we have the New 52 versions of them. Well, now we have the new versions of them because we're switching some stuff around. We're going to personalize the costumes. We're going to personalize their characters, their behaviors, just to fit this new Earth. I think that's something I'm really looking forward to, seeing those type of stories.
Yeah, see, to me, there was this weird argument for a while that the multiverse makes things confusing. The multiverse makes things exciting. The idea that there's endless possibilities of universes out there. And to me, I don't think you should try to limit the number of Earths out there, alternate Earths. Why would you do such a thing? To me, the idea is, like you said, you got the gender switching and all that kind of stuff. I think, if good creators have got great stories to be told where you can play around with an alternate universe, you should embrace that. Another set of characters that I would love to see continue to be reimagined, because they had to stop it, was Freedom Fighters, and I'm not going to see that continue. I know, because they didn't sell well. But did people who missed out on reading those really miss something special? Because every one of those minis was really good.
Oh God, those were awesome! And I was every time a new mini came out, I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get a Freedom Fighter!" And I was getting all excited, and it's just not happening. I'm like, "No!" It's one of those painful moments because there was some neat stuff happening with these characters, and again, this is about let's embrace the change. Let's look for little things that are different, but at the heart and soul of these characters, they were the same characters. They had that same feel, that same comfort that I had with them before that I still have. It's a little different look. There's a reasoning behind the different look. It's not just let's just change it. No, there's, he comes from this area or she's from here. This is, they personalized the changes to fit the story. It's not just let's change the change. I think that was, for me, the strength of the new Freedom Fighters is that we had difference, but there's a reasoning, and they fit, and they was comfortable. And within a couple reads, I was like, okay, boom, I'm in. I'm all in on these guys. These are the Freedom Fighters. Let's run the series.
Two characters I'd love to see brought back onto Teen Titans: Rose Wilson Ravager.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd love them to work her story from what they've done with her in the New 52 into that role. And also, this might surprise you, Kid Devil. I loved that character. And I think that would be one that would be really interesting to bring into and do a reimagining, I'm talking about, of that concept. I thought it was just a cool concept of this kid that... And it seems to be a team that has secrets. Mm-hmm. With what's going on with Kid Flash and stuff like that. And there's something about that it makes for an interesting dynamic when you're in a situation where you have to have so much trust, but yet there's so many secrets there with what's going on with Raven and with Kid Flash. That's a character I wouldn't mind seeing in that mix, just because I thought it was a neat concept. I know there's probably not a lot of people clamoring for it, but I thought that was kind of cool. And I loved his and I think the reason why I'm linking those two is I liked their relationship. Yeah. I thought that was a good relationship, and I think you could develop that again and make it unique and interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. As soon as you said the name, I'm like, oh God, yeah, that was awesome. And we got an ending to him, kind of, where he does the heroic sacrifice and all that, and he had his soul back, so everything's good to go and happy. But he was a neat character that, again, another one that they could use and they could use well. And who knows where they would go with the reimagining of him. Maybe it wouldn't be a sell your soul type of story arc. Maybe he would get the power some other way, or maybe there would be another twist to it. We don't know. And that's again, that would be neat. They could definitely have some fun with that character.
Yeah, is there anybody else that's kind of standing out for you that you would like to see? Is there actually a reimagining that you would like to see, other than the ones you've mentioned, where you'd like to see them kind of continue with the reimagining process?
No, I think I'm pretty happy with what we got going on out there. I would like to see Catman make a return.
Oh wait,
I loved him
on.
in Secret Six.
I would take it another level. I would like to see Secret Six make a return.
Yes. Oh, well, hold on. I've always wanted Secret Six to come back. That's, I think I made that very clear. And, it's one of those, I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to get it again, unfortunately. But I would, heartbeat jump on that, just because all the characters, Ragdoll, Jeanette was a wonderful character. And of course, Scandal, Savage. She was, she was an amazing character who, bring her back into the mix, because I don't know if they've really ever mentioned her. They've been, I don't know if Vandal's ever said he has an heir.
I don't think he does.
Yeah, so I don't think she's around yet. But she may be there and he just doesn't realize it, or there may be a whole nother story that still hasn't happened yet. That's a character right there, man. Scandal Savage. Let's bring her back into the mix, because... she was an awesome character. She was, really cool.
See, here's the funny thing. I guess I would love to see, why not do a Secret Six in their own universe, a la Earth 2? Why does it I guess here's the thing. If it doesn't fit in this world, why not set it another one? I just think to me, that's a book I would love to see back. I'd love to see the creative team, because I think they would embrace it. I'd love to see. Obviously, I'm telling you right now my preferences on the creative team. I would like the old creative team back on the book. But I would love to see them have the opportunity to just reimagine those characters and just have fun with them, whether it's set on the New 52 or, another world. Who cares where it's set? I would love to see that. I think you can do reimaginings in the multiverse and actually have ongoings of those, and they would work. I don't think every book needs to be, and I don't think it needs to be exclusive to what's being done with Earth 2. I think it's a way to take concepts and say, you know what, this book is better served by maybe not being beholden to what's going on in the New 52 continuity. Why not let that book go, but be a part of the larger universe where there is an opportunity for those creators to play in the sandbox if they'd like. So I'd like to see more of that done, where maybe you take great creative concepts and say, you know what, this really doesn't work in the New 52. That's what we've got a multiverse for.
Yeah.
So why not take it? I guess that to me I think that should be something that happens more often. And I think we'll get then some creative reimaginings of classic concepts in a way that maybe they wouldn't work in the framework of the New 52, but you'd get that kind of idea of, let's take this concept back to its core. Let's modernize it for today while leaving enough of the thing that was an original draw. I think there's ways to do that within the multiverse that I think could be cool. And I'd love to see Multiversity eventually published so we could, I don't know if that would be a launching for stuff like that, but I would love to see it because I think it's a chance for creators to really get creative with some of DC's amazing properties and label it something like that. Mm-hmm. Put a multiverse label on it or some multiversity label on it. Maybe make that a branding after the miniseries and plop it on there so people are well aware that, hey, this doesn't take place in the regular universe. You can even put a front page blurb about that. For your casual fan that walks in, hey, this is a book that, embraces the what-if style. Not that they can't say that because that's a Marvel concept, but I mean, that's, something blurb-wise that implies that. I just think that would be neat, and it's a good way to take some of these concepts and make them work.
Yeah, and the thing that gets me, though, is you and I would love that, and I know there's probably people who are listening to us right now say, oh, that'd be awesome. But I'm going to just make a general statement that I think most of the people wouldn't want that. I think that's why there's been such hesitation and delays in multiversity. I think, as a general rule, I think people want, they want it more concise. They want their Earth. They don't want to. They don't want to embrace the concept of just this could happen. This could happen. I think it's. They want a more structured, more concrete, laid out, boom, 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 boom. This is Batman, this is Superman, this is Wonder Woman, etc. I don't think they want that open side of it.
But see, I'm not saying open. I'm saying you would develop a continuity in that world that would, exist. I'm not saying a free-for-all. It doesn't need to be that. You can have a structured continuity. Hey, there's multiple Earths. This Earth's got its structured continuity. What happens when, when those people meet up in one-offs? That has a profound effect on both worlds. You know what I'm saying? That would, if the Secret Six world crosses over with the Earth 2 world, both worlds are affected by what has happened through that meeting, and that affects continuity. Those are things that you could do. And I think that should be creator-driven and, and let's say editorial-driven, too, where, you're looking at a larger concept of what's going on there. I'm not going to – I know that's the reality, that there's a big editorial piece as a part of that. But why not? Take advantage of that. See, to me, I want great stories, and I want them to make sense, and I want them to have continuity and all that stuff. I love all that. I love continuity. I'm not anti-continuity by any stretch. But I think there's ways to do that while embracing the multiverse, maybe in a way that DC never has. They went kind of hog wild with it, and it maybe didn't have that kind of tight continuity, through the various Earths. Why not do some of that on those worlds? But to me, it only works if you experiment and try, one. Mm-hmm. Try a really good one and just say, oh, this person's got a great concept for these characters that have been on the shelf. It doesn't fit in the New 52. So why does it have to? I guess that's my thinking. Why limit yourself from great storytelling when you can build a different continuity that yet is a part of the larger continuity just because you've got multiple Earths? So I don't know. That's just kind of my take on it. I'm with you that I think there's that thought that there'd be resistance, but look how successful Earth 2 seems to be. So
it could work, but I think I think they're going to play it more conservative. I don't think they're going to take the big chance and take the big gamble, because Earth 2 is Earth 2. These are characters that already have the developed continuity, that have the the fan base already. If we start going into these other Earths, I think that's the fear that people are going, I don't know if I want to jump into a new Earth, and it's just the general feeling I get from just from people as a general just rule.
I'm not saying put out 25 titles like that. I'm saying 2, 3, and you launch it off of Multiversity. So you look at this, I'm assuming Multiversity, it's a Grant Morrison book. I'm assuming it's going to be a success. So why not take that, launch that into an imprint or something, where you've got like just a couple of books. And I wouldn't do like 5 or 6, because I think when you do that, you've lost your audience already. Because you're like, I don't want to follow 5 books. 1 or 2. 2, maybe 2 good ones.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm in agreement with you.
Not anthologies. I'm talking about 2 good, solid, continuity-driven books that are independent of each other, other than the fact that they're a part of this shared multiverse. And see, if there's any legs on them. So you're not hitting into a huge... they've done crazy concepts with the New 52. Look at some of the books we're reading that we're shocked by, that are some of our favorites. So why not dust off a concept and see what works? Only a couple of them. And if they don't work, can it? That's what they've been doing anyway.
I'm in agreement with you. I'd like to see that. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll take the chance.
They dusted off Dial H.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I really liked that book, but it didn't work. And when I say it didn't work financially for them. Okay, so dust off something else, give it a shot. Why not? Only a couple titles that you do that with. Keep that slot open for just trying new, crazy, creative things, and maybe not that, but something else. Because I think there's certain concepts. I'm one area where I'm going to say that I think it would adamantly work. If you put out a book with Wally West, Donna Troy, Roy Harper, some of these characters that people have been clamoring for, and you throw Dick Grayson in there, and you put them on their own world, I think you're going to get a crowd, as long as they're at their core, those characters, you are going to get a crowd that's going to read that book. It comes up at every convention.
Yeah, I agree. It's the part of the thing why I said Earth 2 is working, because there's already that fan base. So you would have to go with characters like that, characters that already have that that developed fan base. But what you run into, and this is just me playing devil's advocate here, they would be worried about having Roy Harper and Dick Grayson on this other world and on our world. Having the 2 different, having that character represented in 2 different areas.
They have a Batman on 2 worlds.
Well, the one Batman's dead. We don't know who the other Batman is on Earth 2 yet.
They've got a Superman on 2 worlds. That's Superman.
Well, or something. Yeah. It's that's Franken. I think it's more of a Franken Superman.
Dude, that's like 50 Supermen.
Right. So that's a Franken Superman. So again, it's not Superman. We're talking Dick Grayson, the person who was trained by the Bat, who became Nightwing or became maybe even Batman on that world. We're talking that. I think that's where people would draw the line, saying, is this Dick Grayson or is that Dick Grayson? Well, this is Dick Grayson this Earth. Well, and that's Dick Grayson that Earth. I think once you get to that statement, I think you would lose people. Part of the reason Earth 2 does so well is that they killed off Batman and Superman and Wonder
Ultimate
Woman.
Comics.
Maybe they didn't.
Ultimate Comics. Marvel's Ultimate line. It's proof that people will read popular characters reimagined in a different line. I'm gonna disagree there. I think if you put the right characters in there, people will accept it and people will be interested in it. And you brand it that way as being... But you don't want to do a cheap imitation of Ultimate Comics. If it's the multiverse and you have that option to play with that, I don't know, to me, there would be an opportunity then to what happens if they eventually meet.
Yeah. See, I always thought the Ultimate line didn't do so well.
Dude,
by comparison, the Ultimate line, by comparison to the regular line, it didn't do as well.
Look how many issues.
That's my impression. I don't know for certain.
Dude, it's still around.
It is? I thought they got rid of it.
No, it's still around.
Oh, okay. Well,
they've
shows what I know.
they've redone it and reimagined it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, why keep bringing that concept back? They've done it twice.
Oh, okay.
They had like the regular Ultimate Spider-Man, and then they relaunched it into the new one. But yeah, I mean I don't know. I think why not? I'm not saying to do Ultimate Comics though. I'm saying take advantage of the multiverse. But it is. I mean, I guess it is a similar concept. But the New 52 could be argued as having certain elements in link with what they did with the Ultimate line as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think that there's ways to try some of these characters. My point is there's characters that fans have been clamoring for that clearly don't fit in the New 52 because of the way that things have been set up. So why not give the fans what they want and take advantage of your multiverse system in order to bring them in? I think there's a way to do that might be interesting. And if it doesn't work, so what? It's one book. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, they've tried out enough concepts, look how many books have canceled. Mr. Terrific, OMAC. I mean, let's Blue Beetle. I mean, let's keep going through the list of books that they've tried concepts on. So why not give something like that a shot? They've certainly been, Captain Atom. And I'm throwing out books that I liked a lot, so why not give something like that a shot with the right creative team and see what happens with it? I don't know. Legion, they've canceled, multiple Legion books. So they're trying concepts, so why not give something like that a shot? I don't know. And I mean, it goes on to what, he's got a speculative wish list that he wanted us to have. And he also shouted out in his voicemail, Jim, about podcasting and about how he was inspired by us, by the fact that we aren't professionals. And he didn't mean that. He honestly was. I know. Yeah, I mean, he's totally meant in a complimentary way, which is really appreciated. I think podcasting to me is such an open concept. It's so easy to do. We use Audacity, which is a very free program. You can do amazing things with a headset mic or a tabletop mic or whatever, and you can get as crazy with it. And, as far as how you want to go with equipment and recording, or as simplistic with it as you want, all you got to do is have a great idea. And, I think not necessarily that we have the best ideas, but I mean, I think, when I say a great idea, something that motivates you to want to podcast. Because I think if you're motivated and interested in what you're podcasting about, you are going to find a core group of people who are motivated to hear what you're saying because they're going to connect with that passion for what it is, whether it's a positive or negative passion, whatever is driving you to do that. We do this show as an escape from our daily life and to just geek out about things that we're really enjoying reading right now. I think that the people who listen to this show regularly are connecting with that. So I don't know. I just think, it's really cool that he was drawn to that. I don't know. That was just something that I thought was interesting.
Cool. But
any other characters that you can think of, or is that pretty much it for you?
I think that covers it.
Cool.
Holy caffeine!
Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember, over at InStockTrades.com, you can get the Justice League hardcover, $12.49. That's Volume 3. The Shazam hardcover, $12.49. That's 50% off. Legends of the Dark Knight, Jim Aparo, 50% off, only $24.99. And I'm going to apologize for name butchery there again because it is an artist that's so near and dear to me, and I'm terrible with the pronunciations on that one. But that's InStockTrades.com. Orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. Over at DCBService.com, don't forget to check out the Planetary Omnibus hardcover, $75 volume, 50% off, only $37.50. And the Planetary Batman Deluxe hardcover, $22.99 regularly, 40% off, only $13.79. Over at DCBService.com, your pre-order source. I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show, so please feel free to call in. Want to shout out RagingBullets.com, our show website, where we have regular updates on what's happening with the show. We have columns. We have, actually, you know, one thing we haven't done in a while? We haven't shouted out Where's What Not Now. The various pictures of you in different places. If anybody has fun with Photoshop and wants to put James in various, you're like kind of our show Waldo. Where can you put Jim now?
No, you can do Norge. You don't have to just do me. You can do Norge as well.
Yeah, but it's more fun with Where's the Sensei now. Because you are well-traveled.
Yes.
Some of them were really, really funny, so if anybody has interest in doing those, I love posting that stuff on the website. It's really great. And we will see everyone next week as we continue our exploration of Villains Month. Our goal is to try and hit on every single villain revamp that they're doing at DC. So we will be back and see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in. Be they then in guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan, what you do to me, Hawkman, talking about Hawkman.